Jamie.
Easter.
Small HBCUs matter too.
Let's go!
It's the Division 2 HBCU Roundup on HBCU Pulse Radio.
Jamie.
Easter.
Let's go!
It's the Division 2 HBCU Roundup on HBCU Pulse Radio. Welcome back.
In 4, 3, 2, 1.
To HBCU Pulse Radio, the heart of HBCU culture.
What's going on, everybody? This is Randall Barnes, the founder of HBCU Pulse and the host of HBCU Pulse Radio, in the building for another special edition of the show on today, where we are doing the SIAC Twitter space that we've been doing for the past few weeks since October. It is a lot that is going on in HBCU life. Of course, we know that Deion Sanders, NFL Hall of Famer, Super Bowl champion, and SWAC champion, two-time SWAC champion. He is headed to the University of Colorado Boulder, the Pac-12. It was a very raucous weekend when it comes to that. And I know that I made a tweet on my personal page that got a lot of adulation from a lot of folks about how Deion Sanders didn't really do anything at all for SIAC and CIAA institutions, because they're saying, oh, Deion Sanders has done so much for HBCUs. And I'm like, I didn't see it over here. As a Fort Valley alum, I was a graduate in 2020. I work in HBCUs with HBCU Pulse. This is my occupation now. A shout out to Urban Edge Network and HBCU League Pass Plus that has allowed this to be my primary occupation with what they've done for me financially and also with opportunity. But I work in HBCUs. I speak with HBCU students and alumni and businesses, and I can assure you that if anything, attention towards HBCUs really started with Vice President Kamala Harris being a Howard grad and an AKA, then Deion Sanders, and you had a lot of folks that were in a lot of rooms that were HBCU alumni. But I want to check and see, because I might say this for when we conclude the space, because I have something that I want to say about SIAC alumnus and legend Shannon Sharpe, and something he said that I saw that really hurt me. But I want to make sure that I don't miss anything when it comes to the Twitter spaces, and I might have a little bit of time, and I will do a full statement on it. So I want you all, hopefully, to stay tuned. If you're just listening, this is Randall Barnes, the founder of HBCU Pulse and the host of HBCU Pulse Radio. I am an alumnus, 2019 alumnus of Fort Valley State University, so I care about the SIAC. We call it the SIAC, SIAC, whatever you want to call it. And we're doing a Twitter Spaces that's live on Twitter. So if you're listening and you do want to chime in, go to D2HBCU Football, at D2HBCU Football, or type in on Twitter, D2HBCU Football Guy, and join the space. I know that recently it's been several issues when it comes to Twitter Spaces. So if you are able to join, I would encourage you to join. But I'll just say this to start off. And then after the Spaces is over, I will give my first statements on what Shannon Sharpe said about him having low grades, and that's why he attended an HBCU. He wouldn't have attended an HBCU for any other reason, essentially, is what he's saying. I want HBCUs to succeed. I've worked in and with HBCUs since I was at Fort Valley State University in 2015. And I've covered HBCUs for these past 7 years. I've ran a business that wasn't making money for the longest time. And when I was making money, it was pennies for years within HBCUs. I'm 26 years, well, I'm 25 years old. I'm turning 26 on Christmas. And I love HBCUs. I love Fort Valley. I love our SWAC institutions. I love our MEAC institutions, CIAA. But I think that we're not going to progress unless we get on some type of code and some type of plan amongst each other to support where we're going. I believe that HBCUs are not the slums, as I've said on HBCU Pulse Radio repeatedly. I believe that HBCU Pulse is the common denominator for the promotion of our schools. And what we've done in these past few years is we've tried to promote the best of these HBCUs, but there's greatness all around. And we're going to start the SIAC space in a second, and hopefully, people are able to join, and hopefully it's not a bunch of restarts because Twitter's been bugging. But I just want that to be affirmed because with HBCU Pulse, you see it. We're not the slums. There's a lot of greatness that comes from our HBCUs. D2, D1, all over. D3, NAIA. It's a lot of greatness that comes from our HBCUs. But I think that a lot of the talking points around Deion Sanders leaving Jackson State to go to a mediocre Colorado team that has had only 6 winning seasons in 22 years from 2000 to 2022 after a pretty good run in the 90s with Eric Bieniemy and the crew down there. I've been seeing a lot of down talking about HBCUs, and I'm not a fan of it. I just want to just say that definitively. But I'll save that for later, and I'll talk about Shannon Sharpe later. Let's go on and hop into this SIAC space, and I hope that everything's all good in here. So we're going to go on and hop in. So I want you all to stay tuned and play some more music, and then it's going to start when it starts, man. You listen to HBCU Pulse Radio.
Jamie.
Easter.
Jamie.
Easter.
What's up, man?
What's going on? How you doing?
Man, it's your world. It's your world. It's another Sunday.
Man, listen, it's a lot going on, man. I gotta start off by saying this. I gotta talk to you D2 real quick, man. Cause I gotta let off something real quick, man. Shannon Sharpe hurt me, bro. I'm hurt, man. Did you see what he said?
Yes, I saw it.
Bro,
I saw it.
bro. I'm not even gonna hold you. I'm not even joking. Like, with how we prop up and celebrate Shannon Sharpe, that like real life hurt me what he said, dog.
Yeah, it was definitely unnecessary. Because on so many different levels, it's like, all right, whatever the case may be, once you've gotten there, you should have fallen in love with the place. And you shouldn't say things like that because it's almost like the road to hell is paved with good intentions. You may have had some type of good intent when you decided to write that, but you didn't think that through
At all, man.
And I thought that was like, dang, man, don't do that. They be calling well, some people call him Uncle Shannon because some of the stuff that people praise him for, I look at kind of sideways anyway. But
Right.
Yeah, it's one of those things. I ain't gonna turn this space into a history lesson, but
No, I mean, at some point, like, because my thing is like, because like, this is an SIAC space, and the majority of us are SIAC students and graduates. But the thing to me is like the Deion Sanders leaving Colorado situation has trickled down to us because now all HBCUs and the validity of us having pro players and producing athletes, now all of us are being called into it. And then even in good facets, you have like I saw a tweet that said, "Hey, we have good coaches that with HBCUs," and one person they put Shannon Berry's name in all capitals. I'm like, okay. So it's like, even with Deion Sanders leaving, him being at Jackson State, we're fighting the notion that he improved Tuskegee and Fort Valley by not probably even knowing that we exist.
What's up, Coach Thomas?
What's up, my guy? What's up? What's up?
What's up,
What's
man?
up, SIAC family? Hey,
It's
man,
your
listen.
world.
No, hey, straight up, I'm on it, dog. I feel like this whole situation is definitely trickling down to us. You know what I'm
Yep.
saying? I've been seeing people say, "Oh man, everybody's mad, Deion gone." I mean, I'm gonna be honest with you. I mean, I'm a Benedict guy, so I don't care where he go. I'm just being real. Like I'm a Benedict. Like when it come down to HBCUs, I love HBCUs, but at the end of the day, like I'm a big time advocate and I'm a big time Benedict guy. So I mean, it ain't like he came to us. I mean, if it was Kenneth Berry leaving, then I'd probably be in my feelings myself. But again, man, because again, Kenneth Berry did some stuff at Benedict that hasn't been done. But to be honest, Deion, it's not like he's done things at Jackson State that haven't been done. Now he has brought a lot of media hype, but I mean, let's look at the facts. I mean, them guys was winning championships. I mean, they got Hall of Fame, NFL Hall of Famers and stuff like that done come through there. So,
Right.
that is what it is.
Now, Grant, one thing he did do that Jackson State has done in history, like this is the first undefeated team. Like I will give them that, but it's funny because I saw on their 2024 schedule that he's playing North Dakota State in 2024 with Colorado because North Dakota State, unless FBS schedules is wrong, which they could be, that's on the schedule for 2024. So I think that's interesting with the out of conference component. Because you look at his out of conference record, we talked about it with the SIAC, he's 3-2. Lost to South Carolina State, which is an out of conference opponent in the Celebration Bowl. You lose to University of Louisiana at Monroe. Then your 3 wins was Campbell. That was impressive. Then you beat Tennessee State, which is technically out of conference. So if you're looking at the white schools, he's 1-1. You know what I mean? So it's like, can we for this 1 second? I know I've been against playing out of conference, but can we rank it a little bit? Because he hasn't been that successful out of conference. You know what I mean?
I think for me, and I try my best to stay out of SWAC business because I be wanting to stay out of the SIAC business because when they get to talking SIAC, they have no idea what they're talking about. A couple of months ago, I posted there's a commission called the Knights Commission. They're through Syracuse University where they try to talk about athletics. And one of the things that they look at is like how much of your student fees go to your athletic budget. Okay, long story short, I posted the one. I'm like, hey, by the Knights Commission's data, you're running a $3 million deficit. So I just posed the question is like, okay, if he leaves, how y'all finna make up this $3 million deficit? Right. But they attacked me for it. They said that I wasn't being journalistic because I was just posting from a website, but these websites are pulled from sources from the government that, like, you can go to each one of these sites and pull them yourself. Like that site I posted earlier, Equity in Athletics. Like, there's a lot of people that talk about what they want their school to do, and they talk about, all the schools being elevated. Well, those financial records, they don't say that. That's not what the financials looking like. And at the end of the day, in order for us to have these programs on our campuses, that money has to come from somewhere. Right. And it's like, I get what people saying, and I understand the people who say that he the spotlight and all that he bought. Hey, all thing I know, they were talking about this new age of talent in the SWAC, but every school that they faced out of the SIAC was really competitive. They fought all of those SWAC schools fought to the end to fend off the SIAC schools. So either we're gonna say the talent level in the SIAC is almost on par with the SWAC, or maybe people have hyped that up a little bit.
Right, and I'll say this just to, because I tweeted out, that he's done, and I hadn't done anything for the SIAC and CIAA. But when people say, hey, he's done so much for HBCUs, and what a lot of people point to is the ESPN contract, and there's been more games with ESPN. That has absolutely nothing to do with Deion Sanders. For the SIAC especially, because I can definitely speak on that, but also the CIAA, because I was at Aspire as an intern, like when they had those HBCU games, because I was asking questions. But as a Fort Valley student, I was asking, they would let me know because they were happy to have me there. It was a welcoming environment, Black Centric Network. And they were telling me the whole get down about it. Like Aspire had the rights to SIAC games. They showed the 2016 SIAC championship. And when ESPN decided to make that leap to streaming, they got the SIAC. They already had the SWAC. They already had the MEAC. And the CIAA started their network in 2018. So from 2017, 2018 to now, because remember, SIAC was within the Flow Sports deal. So from 2018 to now, before Deion Sanders got to Jackson State, the SIAC has been primarily with ESPN as our primary rights provider. So how did Deion Sanders help us with visibility with contracts that were already signed by the administration that's not even run by Dr. Holloman? People aren't making sense, man. And it's because I was in a space and someone was someone asked the Winston-Salem grad, hey, well, has Deion Sanders helped Winston-Salem? She said yes. And they were like, oh, really? And then she was like, well, he helped with visibility. What's visible about Fort Valley from Deion Sanders? What's visible about Tuskegee and Benedict from Deion Sanders? Because Benedict was undefeated, and we were talking about it. And then no one on that other side was showing love to Benedict when they were also another undefeated team. And it was dominating teams at Jackson State when dominating their opponents. So that's really the part that irked me about his tenure, because everything good was attributed to Deion Sanders and everything bad was it's y'all's fault. When meanwhile, he was going to eventually leave and he did some stuff, but he wasn't the Messiah that he promised to be, and that's sort of how I looked at it, even with my tweet about how he ain't contributing none over here.
Yeah, I've seen those posts, and I saw you were going to bat, you were battling, you have a lot more patience than I have when it comes down to that. I do not go back and forth with people who can't name two players out of the SIAC.
Facts.
It's just something that I'm not going to do. I think it doesn't serve us a purpose. And I've read some crazy things. I've even read a post where they were saying that they bought up Benedict in something.
What?
I can't remember exactly what it was, but they bought up Benedict, and I was like, you should just keep your mouth off that, you know. It's like just keep your mouth out off that. Like Benedict hired a great football coach. End of discussion. You know, it's just they hired a great football coach. They have put the investment in there, and as we like last week, we had the president of Waters on, and he told us it starts in that president's office. So to put all that on Deion is to kind of like dim like the president at Benedict. Like she has done a wonderful job in going out, hiring the AD, hiring the people who can go out and bring a beer in, giving them those resources, and you're seeing the fruits of their labor. So I think like we have people that need to be celebrated, and so we just have to like lift those voices up, say their names, and make sure that the narrative is just not written by people who not gonna watch SIAC football regardless.
Exactly, and to me, and you know, I don't want to deviate from the conversation because we got a lot going on in our conference, but I wonder because a lot of conversation because Uncle Luke, who he's puzzling to me with some of his commentary, but what he posted made me think because he said something along the lines of, and I'm paraphrasing, he said that the SIC commissioner, Dr. Charles McClellan, should basically be fired. Not SIC, but SWAC commissioner, Dr. Charles McClellan, should be fired because there wasn't money generated from the media contracts enough to hire, to keep Deion Sanders hired at Jackson State. And my thing is, maybe D2, you have more knowledge than me on this. What do people expect from the media? Because at the end of the day, they are lowballing us. And I can say it from now, both sides of the table, me, working with HBC Lead Pass Urban Edge and them showing me sort of how things are. And then also working in athletics at Fort Valley and having conversations with folks. And the fact that there have been a lot of these games that weren't getting streamed before the streaming revolution in 2018, when Bob Iger at Disney said, we're leaping into streaming. We're creating ESPN Plus. We're creating Disney Plus. We need content. Let's talk to these HBCUs. That was what happened. And it wasn't like they did it out the goodness of their heart or because Deion Sanders was there. They did it because they needed content. And we were just getting out that Flow Sports deal. And our entire thing was visibility and money. Like, can a media contract even be enough to keep coaches, even at the highest level, especially for like our conference, you know what I'm saying? The SIAC and SIC, I feel like the media pie is what makes up, of course, the publicity and the promotion and trying to get our guys drafted. But I feel like it's sponsorships, is different tie-ins with advertising. I feel like it's donorship from corporations, it's alumni giving. It ain't just TV, right? Am I wrong in thinking that?
No, it's a combination of those things. Back when I used to write for the local paper, I used to always talk about when you said that they lowball us. I used to talk about how we don't take control. Like there were just certain games that I feel like we needed to take control of. And one of those games in particular, I talked about this last time, that Tuskegee FAMU Classic in Mobile. That was a game I feel like we needed control of instead of these outside forces. I will give Deion credit for saying it out loud, okay, saying it louder, that we were in some of these shady deals with some of these classic promoters where they would just throw the school a little pocket change and then bring them together. That has happened with Tuskegee A&M a couple of times. And it's like if we control that, we would have we could market that better than what these outsiders could market it, because they really didn't know. They really didn't know the landscape. And like I'm always talking about games we missed. When Cumji left Tuskegee to go to Jackson State, and we hired Slater, and Slater wins the first year, Cumji wins the first year. That second year, our AD should have been on the phone. Like, hey, we need to set this game up, because everybody wanted to see, much like that game with Tuskegee and Clark this year. So I think on the other aspect to that, like the sponsorships, all that, Luke is wrong about saying they should fire him. These things are strategic when you look at, and it has to be viewed in comparison to their division. So Luke is looking at FBS, but this is FCS. There's the financial situation across FCS. They are trying to figure out how to make FCS football profitable for each school that's still left. That's why all these schools are kind of bolting for the FBS, because it's like, hey, we can go there, go 6-5 or 5-6 and get a bowl game, and we good for the finances for the athletic department. So it's like, in comparison, what does the SWAC deals look like in comparison to the other FCS schools? Now, in my opinion, they should have more. They should be higher, because we do have the culture, we do have the attendance. The same way with the SIAC. I used to look at the 990 form that the nonprofits have to look at, and the CIAA was always whooping the SIAC in income into the conference. And that's mainly because the CIAA has one major thing. They have that big CIAA basketball tournament that brings them high dollar. And so it's like Uncle Luke he's speaking, and he doesn't know like the nuances to the situations, because every school is different. And I keep saying every school is different. Every school in every state is different. How the state dictates that you spend money is different. A few years ago, Alabama State was trying to raise money to buy their track team, their championship rings, because the state won't allow the school to use certain funds for that. So they had to go out and ask. Like, they ran a whole campaign about that. And it's like, people just talk, and it's more complex than what they think it is. So, it's easy to just get on Twitter and just tweet something out.
Right.
Let's talk about the SIAC a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about one of our guys that went to the NFL and his comments, Shannon Sharpe. What's your thoughts on that, Randall?
Oh, man, because we were talking about it a little bit earlier. So, man, Coach Thomas, that hurt me, bro. I'm not even joking, because, we champion Shannon Sharpe down here. Like, he is like the champion. He's almost like what Jerry Rice was to the SWAC, because they always mention Jerry Rice, Michael Strahan. He's our guy, where it's like you can go from Division II and become this legend, because Shannon Sharpe was like that. He's one of the greatest tight ends ever, if not the greatest. So for him to say that essentially he had bad grades, and if he had better grades, he wouldn't have gone to an HBCU, it's symptomatic of the problem that we don't find value in our stuff at all. We don't. And I feel as if that's what is stopping us from improving our institutions academically, but especially athletically. Because if you have folks that do not value our institutions, we're not going to move forward.
Right, that went to the institution.
Because it's what I'm talking to you.
I said, right, the guys that actually went to the institution and that had the success, yeah, that's going to hurt us, man. Like, I was me looking at all his comments, I'm like, dang, bro, you supposed to be putting on for us, and not, you supposed to make other athletes feel like, man, I can do it from here, man. I can be that guy,
Right.
Dang.
And what was messed up too, and I mean, cut off my bad, but what's messed up too is that exactly what he's going to say on Undisputed tomorrow. Because, they're going to talk about this, because it's a big story. And they have the press conference footage, whole 9 yards. Shannon Sharpe ain't standing with us. So I tweeted this. All HBCU alumni that have been like saying that Deion Sanders handled this wrong, and we're sort of salty that he left in the way that he did, like, we're going to be gaslit by our HBCU alum, including a D2 one. Because I think Stephen A. Smith is going to hop on there and be like, guys, well, he left, and we expect him to stay the whole time. Because that's their homeboy. Like Shannon Sharpe, like, that's his boy. You know what I'm saying? Like, you got Stephen A. Smith, he said that's his boy. And he was thanking him for all he did for quote-unquote HBCUs at the college game day thing. So we know exactly what Shannon Sharpe's going to be on tomorrow. And that makes me disappointed, because there's a whole group of people that are going to be looking at us like we the stepping stool, especially in Division II, which they think our conference is inferior. And you have one of our legends that's basically saying, well, yeah, I wouldn't have gone had I been better in school.
Well, I'm going to say this about it, that he should have been more specific. and called his school name out. That's what I really took offense. Like I can't
Right.
tell you how to feel about your school, because when you say HBCU, let's not forget, you couldn't have gotten into Tuskegee. You couldn't have gotten in Morehouse if your grades were that bad. So not every HBCU would have accepted you in the first place. So you need to be a little bit more specific when you want to, you know, because that label kind of gets put on all our HBCUs, and that's just that's a problematic state. It's problematic anyway that he said it, because you should be past that by now. You know, Savannah State has they have afforded you your opportunities that you have now. Okay, and especially for a program that's struggling, trying to turn around themselves. I don't think you say that. If you truly love there, and I'm not gonna say he doesn't love there, but sometimes the hype, you know, and just not standing on principle. Like the principle should be every time you mention your school and HBCUs, it should be in a bright light. That ain't say you can't have constructive criticism for them, but you don't say things like that. It's just something that you just don't do, and I think that he should know better. And in my opinion, I would love to hear him get on there tomorrow and apologize for that statement, even though I know it probably won't happen. But I would love to hear him apologize for that statement, like they would if somebody else was offended. Because if they offended some other group, you have offended a lot of HBCU graduates by that title, because it's like this thing where HBCUs get what's left. We'll take anybody. There's that idea, and that is a concept historically for HBCUs. You know, when we couldn't go to certain places, but at the same time we have HBCUs with high academic rigor too. So you just can't blurt stuff out like that. Man, it irritated me, but I'm gonna let you fight that battle, Randall.
No, man, that's funny because I actually sort of am probably gonna fight it this week. But like, it's just, another thing too is like, number one, these guys stand on what they say. Because let's not forget, he said something else about HBCUs that ironically Coach Willie Simmons at FAMU called him out on, and then Shannon Sharpe started talking to him like, "Bro, who are you?" And Willie Simmons was like, "I played at like a Power 5 school. And I coach at FAMU, dude. Like, you don't know that? Like, I'm saying this, I'm not disrespecting you, dude, but this is what's going on." So he's not going to apologize. And how I look at it is you have Stephen A. Smith that went to Winston-Salem. Stephen A. Smith does a lot for HBCUs, but he got that backlash last week over some very erroneous comments and just really, I think, out-of-touch comments about the Jerry Jones thing. Here's my assertion on it. And Herb has his hand up. I think that what Shannon Sharpe said should garner the backlash Stephen A. Smith got last week. Because I don't think Stephen A. Smith gets on First Take tomorrow and says anything remotely like that, oh, I only went to Winston-Salem because I had bad grades. Because Stephen A. Smith is an HBCU lifer, and he never hid the fact that he went to Winston-Salem. Shannon Sharpe talks about how good he was at Savannah State when he was beating Fort Valley and beating Morehouse, calls out our schools by name. But then when he says something negative, well, all HBCUs, I can't stand it. I really can't.
And if there's somebody else who want to speak, like I can't see people in, like it's glitching for me, so I can't see anybody that's in the chat room.
Yeah, so I can't. So Herb is in, so I can see him. So Herb, go ahead, Herb.
Yeah, man. If you've been on Twitter today in the last couple of hours, I posted something, man, and I got some thoughts, especially after this presser, you know, in Colorado that he had, you know, and some of the commentary that some of these media heads, not just Shannon Sharpe, you know, I'm finna tag him too, but folks that are outside of the culture, particularly PWI media heads and stuff like that, they need to understand a few things about this whole situation and why people are pissed off. One, you know, Coach Sanders wasn't sniffing anybody's FBS program, you know, prior to this opportunity at Jackson State. Every you know, opening that he went out for, they was like, nah, we good. That includes Florida State. That includes a lot of FCS programs. But he wasn't checking for FCS and D2 programs like that. Jackson State saw an opportunity. Ashley Robinson, said, all right, hey, this could be a good opportunity. Let's roll the dice. And gave him an opportunity to coach. Even with that, he had to go and get, those prerequisites to move to the FBS program when the move hit, and that should have been the first hint, because he had to go out and get it. He had to go out and get his, get that specific bachelor's at Talladega. There's a lot of this that people, that just, it's cringeworthy all the way around, and the way people have kind of responded to it, without understanding why people in HBCU circles that love HBCU football, that love the culture, are really hot about this, is that he pretty much, did a song and dance about changing the status quo and of bringing talent to HBCUs and bringing a light, a sustainable light, on football here. And 2 years in, not even a full recruiting cycle, you're rolling out, and you're reinforcing the opposite narrative. That's that's I don't know how else to put it. It's a really, it's a bad look all the way around, man.
But the other side,
real quick, can I go from another angle?
Yeah.
What if he was doing all of this for his kids? Like, what if, him coming to Jackson State, was for his son, who's a quarterback, who probably wouldn't have got the same fair opportunity, even though he's Deion's son, at, a Power 5 school. I mean, because he was a big time recruit. He wasn't no low budget recruit coming out of high school, but he may not have gotten the same opportunity, at another school. I mean, even look at his son, the cornerback, Shiloh. I mean, he didn't have, when he was at South Carolina State.
South Carolina, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, South Carolina. I'm sorry. I'm the HBCU head. So. But when he was in South Carolina, I mean, he transferred, over there with his dad for a reason. So I mean, it could be all for his kids also, so they can get opportunity.
The only thing I would say to that is that he didn't care about his kids when he went to Colorado, because I'm hearing from real sources, and he confirmed it in that Colorado press conference. Something happened with Shiloh. I don't think Shiloh's trying to leave. Like Shador 10 toes down behind his dad. But Shiloh, he said they butted heads, and he's in the doghouse, and he wasn't at that press conference. And Shiloh really likes the Sonic Boom. So he did that, not worrying about his kids this time around. So I think he does want to get Shador in the league, but he gonna do what he want to do. So I feel like if that played a factor, but at the same time, his goal was to always get Shador in the league. And according to his point of view, that wasn't going to happen from Jackson State, according to him. But at Colorado, it might happen. You know what I'm saying? But he did it because of him. It wasn't because of his coaches, like he was saying. That was covered. It wasn't because of his kids. It was because of him, because he was like, well, it's time for me to elevate. Even with that crazy example of, oh, well, coach either gets terminated or elevated, or they stay and keep winning. Like, what the world? Like, that's the third option. You know what I'm saying? So I think that, he said he did it for his kids a little bit, but it's all about him.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point. There's a little bit of underlying, analysis there too. Shiloh and Shador bought into the culture. That's the point. He's got a daughter that's there that isn't being mentioned, because she plays volleyball, and it's not in the public eye like his sons are. Who's going to stay there, obviously, or maybe not. She plays volleyball. She might roll out.
Is she are you talking about Shiloh? Because Shiloh plays basketball, and I think she's leaving.
Yeah, basketball. My bad. But I mean, that's exactly what That's exactly the type of thing that's got people hot. And like I said, you go to the presser, And and I want people to really understand this. And if you guys get a chance to go to my Twitter feed, read the thread that I posted. It's pretty lengthy. And I remember the first press conference we covered for, when he took the job at Jackson State. This dude was, he was in his bag in terms of, describing what brought him to Jackson State, his grandiose views for where Jackson State should go, his calling, quote unquote, to change the status quo of HBCU football and bring, and start bringing 5 stars home and everything and all of this. And, this was a recurring theme. This wasn't just hyperbole. This wasn't just him blowing smoke. This was a recurring theme throughout his entire tenure. Every time he had a presser, well, what's your goal for? Our goal is to dominate. Our goal is to be that visible HBCU program that could jump to that could jump to FBS and be a G5 or a Power 5 player. And again, this, the move, people aren't pissed off about him leaving. If he had came in to that original presser and just kept it a buck and be like, I saw this as a great opportunity, to build a winner and blah, 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 HBCU folks would have, had a completely different reaction. It's the champagne dreams that he was selling that really, when he didn't follow through, or rather his actions, reinforced what, kind of what he really thought about the whole situation. That, Jackson State was a stepping stone. That was, that was huge. And, this whole, I think the other thing that was really telling about his time there, and this affects all of HBCU football. I think you guys were just talking about that before I got on.
Mm-hmm.
This, savior complex and his tenure, being the boat that rises all tides for HBCU athletics, it did the opposite, because the visibility he got was, for Prime, for JSU, for that squad he had, and the crazy thing about it is that in the media, when you heard everything about HBCU football, the first thing you heard was Jackson State and how they were beating the brakes off of everybody in the SWAC. The thing that's really disturbing about this is that this was one of the best seasons in terms of HBCU football across the board for as long as I can remember, better than last year.
Mm-hmm.
And, you didn't hear Benedict getting that type of shine until they got to the playoffs. You didn't hear, Jada Byers, who's, should have, in my opinion, was a shoo-in for Harlan Hill and Virginia Union, doing their thing in the CIAA. That was that's kind of the byproduct of what we kind of saw. And that discrepancy in terms of talent and competitive balance with the SWAC, that's what ESPN and all those guys covered. Although, the SIAC and the CIAA did get onto those broadcast platforms. But
let me push back on something for a second, Herb. When it comes down to on the Division II level, and especially Benedict, Benedict has done something with their social media that they have like astronomical growth on social media, and it comes from the product that they was putting out, the content they was putting out. Even when they had the uniform reveal, that people was like, wait, they came out of the water with the uniform. I can't remember which one of the games it was. So what bothers me is when we talk about this Deion situation, there are schools because it is SIAC space in SIAC that have put in the work to get the attention that they have.
Exactly.
And so when they talk about elevating HBCUs, no, be specific. Like he was whatever the SWAC business is, that's the SWAC business. Only thing I know is the SWAC did not dominate the SIAC like they should dominate a Division II football league. They didn't do it. They were in dog
Exactly.
fights with all of them.
And,
And what I
and,
Exactly.
Yeah.
and another thing too, can I also say that Delta State almost beat Jackson State as well last year?
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I think, and like I said, this, all those are awesome points, and you're absolutely right. One of the things that really encouraged me during this whole period of time, when the CIAA and the SIAC, weren't getting the benefit, don't have the benefit of that celebrity cachet that Deion was bringing to the SWAC. Social media and independent HBCU media sources took up the slack,
Yep.
and that to me meant a whole lot because I love covering everything. So it's I trust me, I feel you. I just think in the context of talking about Coach Prime, or rather the narrative that people that are outside of HBCU circles putting out that he was a savior to HBCUs. He put HBCU football back on the map. Blah 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 blah. No, no, he didn't. HBCU football. Its visibility, the merger, the culture. I mean, let's be real. The HBCU football experience, fan experience, is one of the most unique in all of college athletics.
Right.
Period. That was way before Prime was even thought about. And just because he happened to be a cog in that wheel for a 2-year period doesn't mean that he was the savior or he brought additional visibility that took HBCU football to the next level. No.
Hey, we gonna cut Deion. We gonna cut Jackson State short, and I'm gonna tell you why we gonna cut Jackson State short.
Yes.
Because when they came and took Cumberland for us, they all laughed and they clapped hands. So you know what? Oh well. Okay, somebody
Well,
came
let
and
me
took
ask
your
this
coat.
before we go, because I wanted to ask you this to circle back to D2, because
Mhm.
you were like outside when that was going on. You know what I'm saying? Like, so what was when Kamaji left? Two questions. When Kamaji left, how was Tuskegee feeling, and also what was Kamaji like at Jackson State? You know what I'm saying? If you watched and kept up with him.
The Tuskegee fan base fell in love with Cumberland for some reason that I just won't share publicly.
Gotcha.
On the space, but he left and went to Norfolk State, and we got him
Mhm.
back. Okay. He announced that he was leaving for Norfolk State. I think 2 weeks later, we announced him as the head coach again. So I think when he came back, that was his only losing season because he lost for that year that he did that stunt, and the fan base rallied behind him. I will argue to you that the love for comedy is why Slater was able to be dismissed from Tuskegee the way that he was, because there's a large sector of Tuskegee people who just love the comedy, and even with Slater winning and winning more than comedy, it didn't matter.
Yeah,
They were
my
still in love
old
with comedy.
my old head coach at Benedict coached under Cummings. James Woody.
Yeah, he was the offense coordinator there, and when he left, went to Jackson State, a lot of people felt betrayed because we had hired him back. We had stuck with him through some times, so they felt betrayed, and there was a little bitterness between us and Jackson State. It was like whatever, and I mean I still have it a little bit now, where it's like okay, whatever about them boys, I don't care. Um, I mean, and that kind of came out the last time we played them. Tuskegee beat them down. It was like there's a lot that goes into that, but so of course I love Slater, okay, and I don't hide that. But one thing about it is you can't convince people because people and their remembrance of the past is kind of there because when you go back and look at the record, when Albany State was done, the SIAC had two dominant teams. You had Albany State, you had Tuskegee. Cumberland was only able to beat Albany State one time.
Wow.
And that's why Cumberland does not have the SIAC championship that Slater has, because he could never get over that Albany State hump. Matter of fact, we thought that we had them beat this one year. It was the Hail Mary pass. I forget the year. I forget the year that it happened, but we thought we finally had it, and they throw a Hail Mary at the end of the game and win the game. So it was heartbreak after heartbreak with Albany State. And so Slater came, and there was a rumor that Slater was bought in just because he could beat Albany State. And what did he do? He turned around, and he's probably the reason that Mike White kind of exited out, because Albany State could not get over the hump to beat Slater. Like, before Gabe got there, I think Albany State had beat us twice in his 16 years of being there. So now we did have some years where we didn't play. So we just didn't beat them like 12 years straight, because we had a few, years where they rolled off the schedule. But
I played under legendary Coach Mike White at Benedict, man.
Yeah.
He brought that same Albany State mentality to Benedict.
Yep. Like that was crazy when he left. I actually I remember that. I feel like 2015, 2016 to a certain point was like a reset, for really a lot of what happened, in the SIAC, because I know that we got rid of Pittman. And then, Albany State got rid of White, and he went to Benedict. So I feel like my freshman year was when a lot of things got sort of reset.
We got my man, Damien. I hope I'm saying your name right. Damien, what's up, my guy?
Hey, man, how everybody doing tonight, man? I'm doing good, man. How everybody doing tonight?
Doing well,
my
man.
guy, what's
Good,
up, man?
Good. Hey, talk about Morehouse a little bit. It's an opening down there.
Yeah, man.
Hey, man. I don't know who they're gonna hire, but they need to hire somebody.
Last week we talked about Ray Lewis. What you think about that hire?
He said no immediately.
No. If I was Morehouse today, the day that Freeman resigned, what I would have called, my first call would have been to Harry Williams at Alabama State. He coached at Morehouse. He played at Tuskegee. He played in the league a couple of years until he got hurt. He would have been my first call. Then once Willie Taggart came out, he got fired from FAU. I would even put in the inquiry to him as well, just to see. Hey, only thing he can tell me is no. Shit, why not?
You know what's crazy, man? When the Tuskegee job came open, I used to work and coach with Coach Wilson. He played at Morehouse, and he came back and coached DBs for 1 or 2 years. Then he went to Virginia State and coached DBs. Man, when he was talking about the Tuskegee job, he was like, man, put in a good word for me. I said, man, when them folks see you went to Morehouse, they not gonna hire you as no head coach at Tuskegee. You went to Morehouse, dog. Like, I'm sorry, it's just not gonna happen. And maybe they'll hire him as a coordinator, but it might be some of that going on over there. I'm just saying.
Hey, look, Williams left and went down to Bama State, and they had a decent year this year. And, Santos went down there, the little running back. He went down there. A couple other players went down there with Williams down to Bama State. He would have been my first call. I would have made him tell me no. No, I'm not coming back down. Hey, okay, that's cool. It just is what it is right now. But they need somebody. They need some new blood so they can restart. I didn't have a problem with Freeman, but Freeman treated these boys like they were old man. Hey, you got to treat these young men like young men. These kids are not us. I'm 45. These kids got a new way of thinking. So I have heard that they got a new guy over who does social media for Morehouse for the football. Freeman was upset with him because he's putting out what these young kids want to see. but Freeman's upset with him because of that. They just need some new blood. They
I
get him
wonder
some
what
new
they.
blood.
I wonder how many. I wonder how many players at Morehouse hit the transfer portal. And I
So,
again, a school like that,
so,
they probably didn't lose nobody.
so right now they got about 10 kids in, from what I understand. But the 10 kids but the majority of these kids that's in the portal, they graduating this December. Morehouse don't got grad school. So they graduating. So they want to continue playing, but they also want to earn a graduate degree. But I also feel that if they get the right coach, get the right resources around this coach, I think some of these kids will come back and just work on a second bachelor's degree. That portal tough. That portal got already 2,000 kids in it. Some of these kids are gonna be left out in the cold.
And I
Yeah.
want to plug Benedict for a second right there on something you just said about that graduate school situation. That was one of the things that their president was talking about when I watched her on a couple of interviews when she was speaking at different events. And one of the things that you can trace it back to their success is getting that graduate program in sports management at Benedict, which allowed them, as you see, like the whole offensive line was just about they were grad transfers in.
Exactly.
So it is like,
All five guys.
it goes back.
Exactly.
It goes back to those presidents willing to put that work and those resources in. So what is Morehouse willing to do? And like I've said before, it's kind of hard to trace Morehouse because they don't have to report to the equity and the athletics. Like, it's certain things they don't have to do being private. So it's kind of like you just have to kind of like read the pieces that they're giving out.
Yeah.
Stephen Gaither brought up a name. I don't know how you feel about the guy that Stanford just let go, David Shaw.
Well, one thing with Shaw is Morehouse can't pay him what he was making at Stanford. But Shaw was at Stanford, 14 years, 12, 14 years. He got plenty of money, and he also understands how to recruit high academic kids. But one of the things that you got to worry about bringing a coach from a PWI down to HBCU, how are they going to react when something don't go the way they want it to go?
100% agree.
That's the big thing. When you go ask for something and they say, "Hey man, we ain't got the money," how are you going to act? We don't seem like some PWI coaches try to come down to HBCU. Look at my man that was up there at Howard, Mike London. He was at Howard 3 years, but that's after he got fired from Richmond. He goes to Howard to rebuild his name. Now he's at William and Mary. And I forget the crazy dude they brought behind him that got fired in between during the year, but he was also from a PWI. That's one thing. That's one thing that us as HBCU man and our alumni got to understand. We don't have everything that these PWIs have. So let's enhance what we do have. And that's one thing I can commend about Dr. Artist over at Benedict. She's running with it. And Benedict is going to be tough the next few years because she's running with it. If you're not going to run with it, you're not going to capitalize on what you have, then you're going to fall by the wayside. That's one thing that irks me about Morehouse and also irks me about Clark. You dead downtown Atlanta.
Right.
You are dead downtown Atlanta. You should be able to get some type of money from somebody. You are dead downtown Atlanta.
And something else I would say too, with me being, from Middle Georgia and still being in Middle Georgia, like not only are they in Atlanta and they can get sponsorships and money and all the different stuff, but Atlanta is the destination. Like that's where everyone is trying to go.
Yeah,
so
that's
King County, Bibb County, all these different athletes. If Morehouse Clark Atlanta are available and they have the grades, they're trying to go to Atlanta anyway. So you should be able to get top tier players from Georgia to come to Atlanta.
And that's the thing. It's like D2. What's my little running back name for Tuskegee that just turned pro?
Torian Taylor.
He's from Scottsdale, Metro Atlanta. There's no way you should let that kid get out of the state unless he just wanted to go out of state. If you want to go out of state, hey, so be it. Go ahead. Langston Hughes is playing in the state championship this weekend, and they are 15 minutes away from Morehouse.
And you want to know something else, man? We almost lost Taylor. We almost lost Taylor to a NAIA school when we were
What?
after him. Yes, we almost. He actually signed with them. We had to fight to get him back. Okay, fight. Man, that almost drove me crazy that we almost lost him. And the fact that if you go back and look at his page when he was in high school, you can see he doesn't have an offer from Clark. It's one of those things that's it's mind boggling, but the same way with Wingate. We just saw Wingate dominate every HBCU they played this season.
Yep.
But they are full of Atlanta and Alabama players. So now when I say that, I want to throw this in. I was looking at their defensive coordinator. He's been their coordinator for 15 years. After we've seen what Wingate has done to HBCUs, okay, nobody's giving him a look.
So wait, so you're saying that maybe an HBCUs try to hire him as head coach or something like that?
It's when I start hearing these names that get tossed around, because I don't know, somebody started throwing Cummings' name up again, and it's like there's some talented assistants in our conference. Okay, you go back and look at Albany State's defense. All the openings come on. Nobody looked at their defensive coordinator as a head coach. It's like nobody takes a look at this guy.
Well, what I think oftentimes is that the head coach takes up so much oxygen that like we don't look at what the support staff around him is doing. Like with Albany State with Gabe Gardena, like we looked at him as that tactician of that defense. When you're right, he has a staff around him. So I think that it's more like, hey, like I'm looking at the head coach. I'm looking at Gardena. I'm looking at Comegy. I'm looking at Chennis Berry, and not like the staff he has around them as someone that can be in that position. And then this is something that I looked into, like when we had Kent Schoolfield at Fort Valley, and someone said this in the space. I think last week, a couple weeks ago, I think it was on my YouTube video. Coach Berry was an assistant under Kent Schoolfield at Fort Valley, and we had those great runs in 98 and 99. And I was like, man, I wish we could have hired him back then. He probably still be the coach now, Coach Berry. You know what I'm saying? So it's talent that's there, but I think the focus on the head coach basically takes up all the oxygen.
And Randall, I just thought about something. I was watching your podcast this week when you did about Gabe. Now you got to give your school a little love. Now you said that Albany State, Virginia, on the HBCUs, Fort Valley has
you're right,
wins
and I
over Valdosta
corrected that.
Okay.
Yeah, because it would happen so quickly because I waited a day because I was super tired. I did the other video. They did beat Fort Valley. I think they did beat Valdosta with Schoolfield. So yeah, on my next one, I corrected that. But that's true. That is true.
And look, it's a defensive coordinator that was at Bowie. He's over with Wilson right now at Bowie at Morgan State. There should be a head coach.
Sewell was my pick for Tuskegee the whole time, and I didn't hide it. I talked about it the whole time because I knew at the Morehouse game that everybody was like, they not going to get rid of Slater. I started talking about the day Slater was going after the Morehouse game. And I started saying that Sewell should be the guy. And the fact that his name is not circulating, it bothers me.
Hey, he knows his defense. He's a young guy. He's mid-30s. Now, what y'all have to understand, I'm a CIAA dude. I went to St. Augustine's in Raleigh. So I'm a CIAA dude. So I don't see him up close and personal. He know what he's doing. It's some good coaches in both leagues. But nobody want to take a chance on hiring them. I just don't understand it. They just won't take a chance.
Can I say this really quickly though? We're naming so many people, and I'm so glad we have moved on from the Ray Lewis talk. I mean, Jesus Christ. I'm so glad we've stopped that. Because I think what happened with Deion Sanders plus all the baggage that we brought up last week, I'm glad we're thinking about other black coaches that could go to Morehouse and make something happen. Now, in my video, I did bring up that maybe Albany State, maybe they try to go for Ray Lewis because that's he's still in Georgia, high profile job. It's pretty far away from Atlanta, so that might not touch him. But like I really want to see coaches get back to coaching. Not like
Yeah,
these football players, celebrities that just get positions. And it's almost like what happens in media. You got comedians and folks that ain't in radio and journalism getting all of our opportunities. So I don't want to see that
exactly,
happen in football.
exactly. And I would love to know who's on these search committees and all of this. We just need some new blood. Morehouse just need new blood. And the reason why I know about Morehouse, my son plays at Morehouse, so I know what happens. You know what I mean? My wife took a job down here in Georgia. We moved to Georgia in June, so I'm in Georgia now. But I still make my runs to Raleigh. I still go to see St. Augustine's play. I go to Smith and watch my man that was at Fort Valley. I go see Sharpe play. The head coach of Sharpe, he got a defensive coordinator who can coach. So it's about getting some new blood. If we can get some new blood for these kids are getting younger and younger. The things that made us go to school or made us like this school with these old coaches, it's tough. So if you're an older coach, you have to surround yourself with young coaches who might be a little inexperienced, but you have to grow with them. I heard y'all talking about Deion earlier. I don't want to bring Deion back up, but I heard y'all talking about Deion earlier. I understand. I see both sides of it. And I was talking to Coach Thomas earlier, just sending some messages on his tweet. People have to look at Deion from both sides. Yeah, he's supposed to be the black messiah to bring HBCU football back. HBCU football been here for 100 years before Deion, and it's still going to be here after Deion.
Yep.
But people were saying, well, he's running for the money. Deion is not about the money with Deion. It's about the money for his assistants, his support staff. He can hire his AD right now at Colorado as the director of football ops for the University of Colorado, and they will pay him more money than what Jackson State is paying him as an AD.
Well, the only thing I'll say is that I personally think, and I was saying this earlier, that the whole entire thing of, I'm looking out for my assistants is a cover. Because, yeah, Deion Sanders is worth $40 million. But with this whole entire situation, I think that he really was thinking about himself. Because if you look at those comments, because TC Taylor's coming with him and all these other folks are coming. We don't really know that. We don't know where the assistants are going. Like it's all unspecified.
Well, listen, you got.
Well, I know.
Let me help you out.
I know he got two
at the D1 level, because I deal with D1 coaches and stuff like that because they recruit our athletes, and I've taken some of our athletes on some of these visits. Man, they have 1,000 coaches at these programs. I mean,
especially D1.
And I'm gonna say, speak on a program that's near here. Where I'm at in Central Florida, South Florida. I've been over there a few times with one of my players or whatever. And man, they got so many people that work there. It's just like, why y'all? I know the head coach just got fired over there and stuff, but it's like, why y'all got all these people? I just don't feel. Some people just sitting in the office, just running their mouth, ain't doing nothing.
Yeah, I
know at a school like Colorado, they probably he could hire those guys to be, just strictly recruiters. Like they can strictly just get on the road and recruit and don't do nothing else. It's the money there.
If you go on YouTube and look at his son Bucky did the little media thing, Coach Hart and Coach Mathis is with him right now. They flew with him to Colorado. Now, I don't know if TC is going to go, Coach TC, because he's recommended TC to take over for Jackson State.
What I'm hearing, like TC don't have a chance because they're trying to get someone that's out the swag. They're trying to get like a splash guy. So
now, if they trying to get a splash guy, Jackson State getting ready to regress. Everybody, if I was Robinson at Jackson State, I want some continuality. So TC is Jackson State. He didn't grow up far from there. He played there and he coached there. So if I was Robinson TC, we're gonna give you a 2-year contract. Let's see how you do.
Well, you know, some of that is part of my mind with the Ray Lewis conversation about for D2, and then you have D1 with Deion Sanders. You know what this era reminds me of? This reminds me exactly of when LeBron went to Miami, and you had all
Yep.
these failed super teams that popped up, like the one in New York. You had
Yep.
all these other different super teams that didn't work out. It only worked one place, and we
They're
thought it
gonna
was
work
going to
one
be
place.
LA and Kobe versus LeBron in Miami, and it didn't happen. And then things sort of went back to normal. I think that's what we're going through, where people want to recreate this Deion Sanders effect, and it ain't gonna work.
It's
It's
not
not
gonna
really
work.
working at Grambling right now. It's high. I want to give Eddie George some more time at Tennessee State, but
Eddie problem is this here. This is what Eddie problem is, and I don't know Eddie George personally. I think Eddie George is a good guy, but Eddie George's name is not as big as Deion name,
yeah,
and that's what the problem. That's what the problem that Eddie is having at Tennessee State. Now, one thing that I also feel that's hurting Eddie is Deion coach high school before he got to Jackson State. Eddie won't never coach.
yeah,
They just hire Eddie and hope, and then try to put a staff around him. You know what I'm saying? So
yeah.
if you're gonna hire Eddie George and you're gonna try to put a staff around him, well, you're gonna have to put some coaches around him. And when I say that mean that you got to go get head coaches from other schools to bring them in to be coordinators. If I'm a head coach at, say, Tuskegee, and you're going to offer me a job as your offensive coordinator at Tennessee, and I got a good thing going on at Tuskegee, I'm going to tell you hell no. I got a good thing going on at Tuskegee. No, I'm not leaving. It's just like Lavelle Moulton at Central.
Mm-hmm.
He coached basketball. Lavelle has been approached by Murray State, being approached by East Carolina, being approached by UNC Asheville, being approached by Radford. Why I'm going to go there when I can stay here and coach the next 50 years and have a losing year once every 3 years, and they're not going to fire me? Well, he don't want for me ass.
Yep.
They never won anything. Central basketball haven't won anything since Bernard Jackson was there in the '89 when they won the D2 Nationals. But Lavelle came in and won 3 back-to-back, went in the NCAA tournaments, and they competitive. So why am I going to leave from North Carolina Central to go take a job at East Carolina? Lavelle got a built-in recruiting system. And when I tell people that, they look at me like I'm crazy. Well, they be like, well, what's this recruiting system? Number one, it's 80% women.
Mm-hmm.
It's 80% women. So if I can get a player on campus and he can see all this scattered ass walking around,
Oh my God.
it excuse my language, my guys, but you can see all this scattered ass walking around. You damn right I'm coming, coach. And you in the basketball hotbed at North Carolina Central. You got the University of North Carolina 8 miles to the west, and you got Duke University 3 miles to the east, and you got North Carolina State 20 miles to the south, and you got the Wake Forest University 40 miles to the west. You in heaven. If you can get any type kid on campus for homecoming, what at a football game, they can see all these nice looking women walking around. Yeah, coach, I'm coming.
What, but like to sort of correlate it back, you know, just to the coaching thing, like the part that, you know, I really wonder, and I think Coach Thomas, like, you really could hop in on this in D2 as well, is like, at what point, because you were saying this about North Carolina Central, the culture, the women, whole entire 9 yards. At what point does our culture become a selling point? Because in every HBCU conference,
Oh
there
yeah,
is a culture and there is a history
it
that people are
is.
interested in. There are stories to be told, and people want to see those stories. Because I know I did a video that's honestly in an article, one of the best of my career, about the Bayou Classic, and everybody's saying, "Oh, well, HBCUs don't get exposure, all these different things." People watched the Bayou Classic; it was on NBC. The NCAA Division II was promoting Fort Valley and Albany State and Morehouse and Tuskegee. We got history too, and we have culture. So at what point does that become a part of recruitment? At what point does it become a part of the PR story, the media story? At what point?
Well, I'm gonna
It should
tell you
all
this. Let
it should
me chime
always
in.
be a point.
Let
That
me
should
chime.
always be told. Go ahead, Coach Thomas.
Let me chime in real quick. So, my first year, my second year back at my alma mater down here, in Florida, I took a couple of our players over to up to Benedict for homecoming. A couple of them, I mean, two of them is playing college football now. But one of them ended up getting an offer from Benedict, which he's not playing there no more. But man, when I took them up there, man, just for homecoming, man, their eyes got so big.
So
All of
big.
them wanted to be a part of the institute. Man, they like, man, coach, man, what we got to do? So that Sunday, Mike White was still the head coach at the time. That Sunday, man, we went and met with Mike White, so he could talk to him and stuff like that. But I think that's one of our biggest selling points. We got to get these kids to those homecoming games. Those got to be big time homecomings. And I know classics are normally in neutral sites, but if we can start hosting some of those classics right at these home stadiums, that's another selling point for these kids to see.
Yep. Morehouse went 1-9 this year. 1-9. They
Yeah.
played Benedict for homecoming. And like I said, I'm a CIAA. I'm just jumping into the SIAC. But all the people at this game, if you get a high school kid out there and let him see that where you can come to school and be yourself and you just do what you do, hey, we got to expose our culture to these kids.
But that's the part that I'm sorry, I'm just going to cut, but like that's the part that I'm saying. Like I feel like like for recruitment, bringing people there, but like that should be a part of the pitch in general. Because I've always said that that's what makes HBCUs different from other institutions.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I gotta I think there's not a lot to that formula. I mean, and it varies from school to school. Obviously, everybody's culture is similar. Everybody's got different points that are attractive about their aspect of the culture. But one thing that has to be, kind of the one thing that has to be, kind of the baseline is who you hire to market that culture and blend it with athletics. So, like, for example, the CIAA basketball is a good example. And I'm glad Coach is on. CIAA basketball is a good example. Anybody that's followed the CIAA knows that conference, the CIAA tournament, the game atmospheres, Brave Boy, Barco Stevens, Bowie and Lincoln got really good atmospheres. Norfolk State and North Carolina Central when they were in the CIAA. The legacy there is story, and that's what those coaches have gotten really good at using in terms of their pitches and in terms of how they recruit kids to that to that legacy and to that conference. And it's not just one or two schools; it's everybody. It's like, okay, you go to a kid, try to get a kid at Bowie State, for example. Okay, anybody? I'm a DC native, so hoops in the DC metro area is, anybody that's followed college basketball college basketball knows is big time. That's one of the best. It's one of the best, deepest hotbeds in the country.
It is.
But, there's so much talent there, but a lot of those kids will go to Bowie State and be like, okay, well, sell me on going to school here. Well, the CIAA is a storied conference. It's a national championship conference. It's got national championship legacy. Bowie State has been competitive in that conference. That's how Darrell Brooks, I think he's doing a lot better than what he was, but that's how he's starting to get, those transfers that would ordinarily go to American or GW or any number of schools. to come there. And the same thing applies to to football.
And,
Um,
and, and you're right about that, Mr. Herb. You are definitely right. At one time, and that's not to cut you off, but at one time, you look at Bowie State basketball roster, and all of them are from PG Community College. But one thing that, just like with Bowie State football, Bowie don't leave Maryland to recruit. That is what people fail to realize. Football, all their players is from right there in the state of Maryland and DC. It's kind of like Virginia State in basketball, where Blow is. Blow got the full allotment of Division II scholarships as a basketball coach, but Virginia State also let him have full scholarships for kids who live outside of the Virginia area that they get in-state tuition. We have to incentivize these kids to have our kids stay to come to school. We can keep our players at home. One thing that the CIAA do, they pump that basketball tournament. And if you have never been, I will highly recommend that you go. You talking about football classics, homecomings. That's all of that's going down in 1 week. The last week of February, wherever the tournament is in Baltimore right now. It's probably going to move within the next 2-3 years. But the tournament used to move around every 3-4 years. It kind of got locked into Charlotte for about 15 years. But it's just a big homecoming. And then you have coaches bringing high school kids to that tournament, and they get to see this atmosphere
yeah,
with all of us, upstanding black man who trying to do something with their life. We ain't standing on the corner gang banging and selling drugs. We trying to do something for our life. We trying to help these kids, and these kids get to see all these people, especially the young man. It's just like going to a club. If you go into a club, what's gonna keep you in the club? Women.
Hey, what I want to say, what I want to say is this: I'm super excited to talk about Albany State as a Fort Valley alum. But what I would say about like my final thoughts on the Morehouse job, all I hope is two things. Number one, that they go for an actual coach that knows how to coach, and that isn't like someone that's a shock hire, that's just someone that's a celebrity or whatever. But number two, I hope that they can bring some level of relevance to the conference, especially with the switch of to the now the schedule where it's not divisional. It's based like you're playing these 8 games and with 4 set opponents and 4 rotationals.
Yep.
Morehouse being a good team, that's going to make the conference a wild card. So I hope they get somebody that can recruit and that can flat out coach. So we can have some good games.
Yep. And that's all. That's all I want for them. If you have to go get a high school coach who has been successful, then so be it. But you got to have something. Atlanta is too much of a hotbed for Morehouse and for Clark to be terrible in football. I think Slater's going to get Clark back to where he want them to be. Now you just have to get Morehouse. If you can get your 2 Atlanta schools to perform football wise, the potential there is untapped.
Right. Hey, we got brother Stephen Gay, the HBCU game day in the building. Man, how you doing? I think Steven's on mute. I think he's on mute. But we got him in here, man.
Excuse me.
Good.
Hey, can you guys hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, we got
I'm
you.
sorry, guys. Yeah, this something's going on with these Twitter updates, so I'm
Yeah,
only able to. I wasn't able to tap the microphone until just a second ago. But what's up?
yeah, man. Well, we're about to talk about Albany State's, coach situation. But like you the guy, man. Like you reporting everything. It's what do you think about Morehouse's coaching situation?
Well, I think I would say. I mean, I haven't invested a lot of time into the researching of it.
Mhm.
But just like I was saying earlier, you guys hearing that feedback from me, or is that somebody else who's like microphone? Okay, that sounds a lot better. Thank you.
Gotcha. No problem.
Yeah, no worries. So yeah, obviously, we talked about it last week. I think that D2 backed off his assertion that Ray Lewis would be a good. I think we've had our come to Jesus moment on that. So
Right.
I threw out the name earlier today. David Shaw. I know. Obviously, he's coached at the Pac-12 Power Five level. He's been on staffs there and everything. So maybe obviously to come down to the Division II level would be quite a stretch. But I think someone. I think it would behoove Morehouse to get someone maybe like that. Not that there are many guys who've been black men who've been a Pac-12 coach, but just someone who knows how to maybe excel at a private university. And the reason I mentioned him was because he's at a private university. Academically, it's very astute. You have to prestigious. You have to. It's not just that everybody can go there situation. And so I think that a coach like him who understands that. Again, I think I talked last week about how Howard, they seem to have found a coach who understands the culture there, the culture that is there, while always also looking to move it and progress it forward. I think for however everybody feels about Coach Prime, Deion Sanders, and things like that, I think one of the important things that he talked about was provoking change, and I think that at our institutions, I think a lot of times that has been a dirty word, or maybe not so much a dirty word as it's just people looked at the issues with change, mostly financial, some cultural, but mostly financial, and would say why change wasn't possible. But I think we've seen that everybody's not going to be Deion Sanders, but still there are some things that we need to change. We need to grow. We do need to invest in certain things if we want different results. We were just talking last week about the playoffs, D2 wise, as far as what other programs had that that the D2 HBCUs don't have in the Division II level. And so I went and did a little bit of research. I looked over at I think one of the things we talked about was the training staff. I'm sorry, not the training staff, but the strength and conditioning staff. I went and looked at Wingate. They have 10 or 11 assistant coaches. And some of our schools aren't too far off from that. But even beyond that, one of the glaring differences was they have, I believe, it was 5 or 6 athletic, strength and conditioning people on people on their team. And so I think that I did some looking at some of the other schools. Virginia Union does not have a strength and conditioning coach just in general.
Wow.
They have a coach who does their strength and conditioning for their program, but he's also a position coach, right? And then you look at Benedict; they do have one. As Fayetteville State has one, so there are some of our programs who have one, but we go one or none versus 5 or 6. Obviously, somebody's going to be at a disadvantage, and I think 2 weeks in a row, we saw some of that come into fruition there. So that's going to take, and how does that change? It's going to have to take the resource changes. I talked to, and about this. I talked to my brother, who actually is who has been a college strength and conditioning coach for over a decade. He's actually out of the collegiate game now, but he was an assistant with the Duke lacrosse team a couple years back, and they won not those Duke lacrosse teams from like 15 years ago with all that stuff, but a couple years later where they won the NCAA title. He was one there. He also worked with the G League, and he also spent quite a while working out in California. And it was, and I talked to him about it, and he shared with me that his current HBCU in the MEAC actually offered him a job, but for one, he would have been the second strength and conditioning coach, but the salary just wasn't gonna work for the area that he would have to move. So I think again, I think that's another thing that HBCUs, they're going to have, like, the president of Edward Waters talked about last week, they're going to have to invest in infrastructure And the presidents are going to have to recognize that you're not going to be able to win national championships with a rec league size budget. You know what I mean? They've got to go out and find ways, either themselves or find people to raise money for athletics. And I do think that there are some presidents that I talk to that I believe are interested in figuring out ways how to make things work. But it is going to be more work on them. And I think, unfortunately, so many of our presidents have so much on their plate that, something else that's added work for them, it can be a little bit cumbersome to get them to take it on. But if we want to get to the next level, those are the things, again, that need to be addressed. And I think, again, Coach Prime, again, for whatever you may feel about his exit, I think he shined a light on that. And there are some things that do need to be talked about. There are some things that do need to be brought up and brought into the public sphere so that we can deal with them and move and progress and do better. So, Morehouse, again, is a program, is a school that's very prestigious. They're in Atlanta, where there's no lack of football talent. They have had some facility upgrades, which is great. But I think for them, if they need, with this new hire, they need to show that they're serious about football. They need to show that they can get someone that can help really build their program and get them to not only just winning the SIAC, but can become a power on the football field. And I think for Albany State, you look at their situation. Whatever people feel about it, Coach G was there for 5 years. They were very successful, winning all those division titles. We're able to finally break through in 2021 and get the SIAC title. And so, he did what successful coaches are supposed to do, and that's move up. Obviously he had the tie there at Charleston Southern, so he went back to be home. Nobody can begrudge him to that. So, now for Albany State, it's a matter of getting somebody else in there who can, come in, assess where the program is, and get direction, and then, providing them with the tools to be successful, as Coach G was able to do. So, I know a lot of people will have, there'll be the question about, promoting an assistant or, hiring a celebrity or whatever, whatever the case may be. But I think, just have to, again, like I said last week, it's going to be very interesting how schools are doing their coaching searches. Even since then, we talked, and you talk about the D2 level. There's so many jobs that are going to be open. Some of our, what usually happens in college athletics is it's a trickle down thing, right? And so usually what happens in the Power Five, coaches get promoted up. Then the G5 coaches, those openings are up, and then they have to hire staffs. And then from there, you go to the FCS, and then you go down to D2. Some of our D2 HBCUs have had to. I'm sorry, our FCS HBCUs have had to let go of guys recently, and I'm hearing that some of them may be targeting some guys from the D2 ranks. So it's going to be fascinating the next couple of weeks. The SIAC, pretty much everybody, everybody had a coach between since the 2019 season. I think the coach at Allen is the only coach that still remains. Am I right? Somebody let me know if I'm wrong, but I believe so.
D2, what you think? Like, is that on point? Because I think it is.
2019. Yeah. Now that Freeman is gone, everybody, because Freeman would have been the last one. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, so everybody's between new coaches and COVID. There's been a reset. We saw this year. Like D2 likes to say, the blue blood of the conference didn't win it. It was a Benedict program that hadn't won it in a while. They had to do a reset, and so now it's going to be who's going to be next. Savannah State had to do their reset a couple times. So who's going to be next with them? And it's just a lot of questions to be answered. Again, there were so many new coaches last year, and then it seems like everybody who didn't get a new coach last year has a new coach this year. So,
Steven, question: do you think Jackson State go after an SIAC coach?
Oh,
I mean, are you saying Coach Berry? Because I'm.
They said name. I'm just asking.
Is he going after Coach Barry? No, they go after Coach Barry. That's
Look
like
at
because
Ashley
I don't see
Robinson.
nobody Jackson go after Coach Barry.
Look, you got 3 jobs that's open in the SWAC. Then you got 3 jobs that's open. You got JSU, you got Bethune-Cookman, and you got Pine Bluff. You got 3 jobs that's open.
I
True.
would,
That's
I
true.
would, I would see him probably going with somebody at the FCS or maybe even the FBS level. That someone at the FBS level, I would say probably who's up and coming. Because prior to Coach Prime, you had him hiring Coach Eric Dooley at Prairie View. He was the first one to make him a head coach, and he also did the same for Willie Simmons. So I think you may see a Willie Simmons like hire for him, someone who's still fairly young, charismatic, that can, salvage what is remaining of, what will be left in the aftermath of the Coach Prime era. Someone who, they may not be Deion Sanders or have his profile, but, be okay with, uh, be okay with shaking up the landscape a little bit. So I would expect it to be probably some FBS assistant. Will he look to get another NFL guy? I mean, there's really only one Deion Sanders, so it's not necessarily a plug and play option. But I think again he'll look to make some type of a splash. I don't see, and that's no disrespect to anybody. I don't see it being anybody coming from that D2 HBCU level.
Yeah, I like now. Granted, Coach Thomas. At first, I was like, nah. Then I was like, wait a minute, because it's like, well, there's only 2 HBCUs that went undefeated. That was Jackson State and Benedict. So in theory, it makes sense, but I don't think it happens. Like I think it happens.
You never know. He got a SWAC background.
I
You
think.
never know.
That's true.
Well, he has an everywhere background. He's coached in the MEAC as well. He was at A&T and a couple other places as well. So he's been everywhere. But I think I would see Bethune Cookman before I saw Jackson State.
What I find funny about the Albany State job is the Albany State fan base. They remind me of the old school Albany State fan base. Reminds me of the old school Tuskegee fan base. There were. I mean, I just go through tweets sometimes. Sometimes I just search the school's name just to see the random tweets to see what people are, just saying. And I kept seeing this thing about one particular tweet was they called Gabe's success moderately successful.
That is insane.
And but I've heard that sentiments even in some of the forums where some of the older SIAC fans gather. I don't think a lot of them ever bought into that hire at all.
Well, can we be real tonight? Can we be 100 tonight? It's because he was white. Okay, let's be real. Because he was white. Because if you have a black coach that does that same thing, we're calling him the next Deion Sanders, man. Like he his first game he beat Valdosta, like with Albany State. like he beat us. He was 3-1. I think he was a 3-1 or 4-1 against us, but we got him this year with Fort Valley and Albany. He went to consecutive SIAC championships, won last year, had a dominant defense. Like this was a black coach. It would almost be like Deion Sanders leaving Jackson State. But it was because he was white, and I get it. I rock with it because he's white.
Hey, he finished third. He finished third in the East this year. So I really don't care where he goes.
I mean, look, I'm gonna tell you right now, from somebody whose alma mater's football program is where it was. If it was a white guy that would get us a better record, I'd be all for it.
I feel
like, I don't know. It is what it is. Like at the end of the day, people like to win. You know what I mean? Like they like to win, and I don't know. I never heard anything. Anything less than reproachable. I never heard anything bad about Coach Gabe.
I'm gonna say this: Coach Gabe recruited Arbondale High School. That's where I coach at and teach. I mean, they had coaches. I mean, again, I don't know who's still on staff up there, But one of their coaches came down this week. I was teaching while he was on campus, but one of their coaches came down this week to recruit. So I mean, whoever he has, I mean, they really been in the hunt to get some guys.
Well, one of the things about it is I like Coach Gabe. Like right off the rip, the first time that we played him, Albany State hadn't beaten us in years, and the first time he played, I was like, "Oh, Albany State is back." You know, that was his first season. Like they whooped us real bad in Phoenix City in the Whitewater Classic, and I was like, "Man, dog, I hate they got this guy." But I think I hear what you're saying about the coach being white, but I think some of the diehard fan base was looking at it. So after Mike White left, they had Dan, okay, and a lot of people thought they didn't give him a fair shot. They gave him 2 years, and then it was like, no, you going 6-4. So that next year when Coach Gabe came in, you know, he has a 6-4, 7-4. You know, like that was like the basis of his season. 7 wins for the old school Albany State. I mean, just like 7 wins at Tuskegee is gonna have you looking crazy. You know, the fan base.
Did they not beat Valdosta that year though?
Yeah, they beat Valdosta his first game.
They beat Valdosta the first game. And I'm gonna tell you something. The Valdosta coach made a comment. Right after the game, he said, "I'm happy to see Coach Gabe there because normally Albany State is out of shape when we play him." Like that was his comment. And I remember like some of the players even tweeting out that, "Oh, don't play on our old coaching staff," because it took a while to just.
But was it true? But was it true?
Well, Mike White did beat the national championship at Austin State team too. So
he did?
He did. Yeah, and so those alums, they're looking at those 10 wins, 10, 11 win seasons where they will only lose to Tuskegee at Albany State. And so when they start seeing like 7 wins, but you also have to play into consideration, the scheduling got hard because they were putting 3 and 4 GSC teams. You know, when we went to divisions, they were putting 3 or 4 GSC teams on the schedule. And so all that play a part. I think he did a great job, in my opinion. Albany State they have other issues that's there. And I think that people don't know how bad it can get till it gets bad. And I'm just a living witness of that. Like it can get bad, and it can get bad really quickly. A few years, and you look the other way, and your program's in the dumps.
I mean, 10 years ago, WSSU was rolling to the national championship, and look where they are now. You know what I mean? Like, you know, again, if they had a white guy, if there was a white guy that could lead them past where they were, I'd take it. That and I will also say, just I haven't heard anything but good things about how the players were treated. You know what I mean? Like always kept them in the high regard. I think he led them through that tough time when they lost the young man during the season.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like I just think certain things like that. Like I feel like people could be a little bit petty. I mean, and. I don't know.
The one thing that I'll say is like, what do we measure? And I understand what you said, D2, about on time 7 wins, but what do we measure success by? Because when you look at his tenure, it was immensely successful by any metric, especially the fact that we were talking about, the past couple of weeks, especially with the playoffs. We talked about how SIAC schools, including even Spring Hill, was not beating out-of-conference people in sports. And then you have a coach that beats Valdosta, beats West Georgia, makes the playoffs in 2021, has a defense that only, ironically, Morehouse scored on. And it was off a fumble recovery. So it's like he had a dominant defense that no SIC school, except for Morehouse in a lucky fashion, scored on. Then he goes to FAMU, holds them to 23 points. They get on the board first, and then has a good season until they meet Benedict in Fort Valley. And also Savannah State played them tough, but like I just don't understand what more you can do. I mean, does he have to win the D2 championship? Like he had a good tenure. I don't understand what more he would have to do. And I think that Albany State fans should be, gracious towards him. But I do understand the sentiment that I've often heard is that he was a white coach, and they wish that it would have been given to number one, a black coach, and number two, a coach that was from Albany State. Like, that's what I've heard. I haven't heard anything necessarily inflammatory against him, but that's the sentiment that I have often heard, is that they wanted to preserve that culture. And one thing, being a Fort Valley alum, is that a lot of times during the beefs, we'll say, "Oh, Albany's a PWI and y'all are Darton," and I don't engage in that anymore. I'm past that. But oftentimes, they take those jokes seriously because they care about the fact that they're an HBCU. So you got the coach and AD white, so they want to bring it back to being a black coach.
Let me tell you something. It's one of two things. Either you want to preserve the culture or you want to win, and that's how you have to look at it. If I thought that the coach Gabe did a good job at Albany. Like you were saying, they went down. They gave Fam 2 hell of a games, 2 years straight. But if you get and it's bad to say it like this, and some of y'all might be mad because I'm gonna say it. But if a black coach goes down to Albany or whatever, a young black coach, and he goes down there and he does what Coach Gabe did for 3-4 years, he's gone.
Yeah,
he's gone. Somebody, the SWAC is gonna pick him up, or some Power 5 or Group of 5 is gonna hire him as a coordinator. So it's kind of like,
but to
damn
be
if you
fair,
do.
like he went too. Like Coach G left too after 5 years.
Yeah,
It's not just the black
he
boy.
left. But it's not like he left. It's not like he left. He kind of went home. He left to go home because he was at Charleston Southern. So it's kind of like he left to go home. So it's just like a damn if you do, damn if you don't.
Yeah.
I think when go ahead, Steve.
And I'm just gonna say, like, we also got to get out of this acting like how people do us. Like,
Yeah.
if they just don't like him because he's white, just say we don't like him because he was white, and just be honest about it. But people don't want to do that. They want to, they want to kind of color it or paint between the lines. Just say what you want to say. And some people will say it on social media, but I don't know. I don't know. I've never heard any backlash about them. So I think at the end of the day, I think there are very few people whose dream is to coach Division II football. I'm just sorry. I mean, even you look at Damon Wilson. Damon Wilson over at Bowie State, what he did, I mean, that's his alma mater. You know what I mean? But he got to a certain point where he kind of felt like he had tapped out what he could do. He saw opportunity, and you gotta, you're at a D2, like football wise, we gotta realize, and this is something that when I went to Jackson State for the college game day thing, Reese Davis said, and it's a real thing. Like, if nobody wants your head coach, you probably don't want him either. You know what I mean? So you're never gonna be able to satisfy everybody. So all that said, hopefully Albany State will work to find somebody that will work for them. And like I said, it seemed like from what I saw, Coach G was very community oriented. So he made sure that
Very
they did
much
things
so.
He was.
in the community.
Very much so.
So I just don't see how you can really hate on that, and he
Yeah.
won. So it's
But
just.
I think that like back to the whole entire Albany thing is like what they had to go through in, like, from my time at Fort Valley 2015 to, of course, now, is fighting that, like, basically the history of Albany State and their HBCU status being washed away, which of course is insane because you can't wash away HBCU history. But like, they feel as if their identity is being threatened because of that Darden merger. Then you have this preponderance of the diversity message with the institution. Then you bring in folks that don't reflect what they believe is the culture of HBCUs. When you look around the conference and you see Chennisberry, you see Sean Gibbs, you see all these different folks. Like, I think that's what they're looking at, because it's like they're suffering from success. Because when they beat Fort Valley, oh, they love it. They love when they beat Fort Valley. Like, they love when they are contending and going to the championships and all of that. They love that. But it's like, man, we
So
wish that it was someone from our community.
is there so when we talk about taking away from them being an HBCU, so did the number of black players go down significantly? Were there more white players than
Nope.
black
You're right.
players?
You're right. No,
I
they
mean,
didn't go
come
down.
on, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, let's
And,
keep it a buck.
and,
Like,
and actually, I think I would say that the number of black players went up because if Albany State's offensive line under Mike White was kind of diverse a few years too. But I'll go back
They
to
had
this about
influence.
and Albany State, that defense, that 2021 year, I've officially put that defense as my number 3 defensive in the SIC of all time. I argued to put them number 2, but I
Wait,
placed them.
I
I
gotta
placed them at
ask
number
you.
3.
You know, I gotta ask you this, D. I mean to cut you off, but who are the other 2 that's above them? I gotta ask you.
So there's that 91 Albany State team before them, and then there's that 2007 Tuskegee team that I have number 1. But so Albany State, like you said, you talk about the merger. I think when he came in, that was the part that just kind of got, like we all have these older alumni in our thing. They just see things the way, like when we get in these alumni meetings, I understand why a lot of young people don't go, because there's still alumni that's saying, oh, Tuskegee needs to go back to a dress code. You guys should have on suits when you go to class. Like, like they hold on to something that I'm like, it can still be Tuskegee and not be that. Okay. And you can embrace the new Tuskegee and still keep the standard. Like y'all have all said, I think Coach Gabe did a wonderful job. I was even asked last year, did I think he would get a new job? And I said, well, I think he'd have to win the year before last. I think he would have to get over the hump of winning the SIC championship, and he did. He finally put those pieces together. And I think that he heard some of the criticism that was out about his offense, because if you see this year,
yep,
they would throw the ball a little bit more than they normally had in previous seasons. Whoever gets that job, it's a good job.
It's a great job.
It is. Now I know that they are, because I look at financial statements all the time for our universities. I know like there is a concern there, okay, but that's nothing that they can't get over. I talk about, I say this all the time. I went on their website and realized they had a $9 recurring monthly giving thing. I'm like, y'all need to tell people about this, because y'all almost got my $9 a month, but I just didn't want to auto pay it, and I'll auto pay my own school, okay. But it's like one of those things where I when I watch their games, I have just a rule that if I watch a school game on HC League Pass or whatever I watch it on, I'm gonna throw them the price I'll pay for a ticket. That's just me. I'm just gonna send that in and just go on about my business. But Albany State is a good destination. I hope whoever they bring in, like you said, Gabe was a really big community man. Like, he always had those guys out. He was always out in the community. He was right out there in front, not only when the player was killed, they had other tragedies on campus that I saw Gabe like just there. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is a guy that even asked, like I would ask him, joke about coming to Thanksgiving dinner. I mean, he opens the door like, hey, you come on, So I really appreciated him, and what they have going on. So I think that's, if I'm going to rank the jobs, I like the Albany State job as the number 1.
Number 1, clearly. And I hope that no one that is talking about this doesn't give Albany their respect. And I'm saying this as a Fort Valley alum that has had to, in my years at Fort Valley, really watch them, because they're our rival and they were so good. Like they won a Pioneer Bowl. Like they won 16 national championships. They have out of conference wins. Like, they have like draft picks. Like, they have success, and then they've had current success. Because I don't want Albany State's job to be Jackson State-ified. And here's what I mean by that. Like, a lot of people just swear up and down that Jackson State was Colorado before Deion Sanders got there. Colorado has had 6 winning seasons in 22 years, like, literally. Like Jackson State was winning with Kamaji. Albany State was winning with Mike White. They were winning with Coach G. They've been winning. So hopefully, like, the people really look at that job as, hey, this is a high-profile D2 job. As high-profile as Valdosta would be if it was open, as high-profile as Delta State would be, this is a big job for a school that's rich in history. And it's like last time I checked, one of the 10 biggest HBCUs in the nation with roughly like 5,000 students, almost at 6,000. So like this is a great job, and I really hope that people take it seriously. But I hope that the athletics crew, they hire the right person that can continue that level of success. Because I think that to a certain point in this generation, like there's built-in success for Albany State, but you have to have the person in there that can continue that sustained level of success.
Yeah, most definitely. It's one of those things where I've said this, and I feel like I have a good relationship with Albany State people, but they kind of tore me up. You know, I even got a response from their AD when I said about if Valdosta State jumps for FCS, would the GSC come knocking for Albany State? That's one of my biggest concerns. So I'm really interested in this next hire.
When I tell you, hey, D2, can I just say this real quick? If y'all thought that it was odd how they were treating Coach G and how people were saying he was moderately successful, let them try to jump to the GSC. And I know we said that in the spaces these past few weeks, but you are going to see worse than it was in 2016 when they were protesting about HBCU being taken out the mission statement. Like, because like I said, they're already dealing with the, oh, y'all not an HBCU anymore allegations with that Darden merger. If they like going to the GSC is like A&T going to the Big South. You know what I'm saying? Then now the CIA. It's like you're leaving the culture. So you're leaving a rivalry matchup with Fort Valley. You're leaving Tuskegee. You're leaving Savannah State. You're leaving Morehouse. Like you're leaving historic rivals and historic games to go to the GSC where it's not even promised that they're really gonna win. You know, it would be crazy if they did that. I don't think that they should do that because they need to value some level of culture. Then they're successful they've been successful in the playoffs in their history, and they made the playoffs 2021. So I just think that they should stay, honestly.
I think that their AD is. I think he listens to his base a little more because some of his tweets that he tweeted out about the 8-game scheduling, I guess it's a good segue to talk about the conference getting rid of the divisions, was he was saying now that it's an 8-game, it's going to make it hard because to schedule those out-of-conference games. And me and you, we kind of talked about this before.
Yep.
Now there's 8 games and you play a 10-game schedule, now you really only have 2. So basically for Tuskegee, we already know what our 2 out of, going to be, because right now we still have the contract with Fort Valley and the Red Tail Classic. And then, when next year we'll be back in the Turkey Day Classic. So we already pretty much know, what our schedule is going to look like. Whoever's going to be the 2 teams that roll on and off, we'll see. But I really hope that we get Clark again because I think that game is just going to have, implications because it's Coach Slater. And I think that's just, it's a game that can turn to a rivalry the way that the Miles game turned into a rivalry, because that was not a rivalry game prior to Ruffin going to Miles. Like, we didn't even have second thoughts about Miles, to be honest with you. But, certain things develop rivalries in the program. So I think their AD, like because he said it's kind of hard to keep the alumni happy and give them games that they want to keep, and also, have that focus, on the playoffs. And I understand his, especially since they were trying to schedule like 3 GSC teams. You see the FAMU game. I'm pretty sure they had more than 1 year on that FAMU contract.
Well, theoretically speaking, they had 2, but then COVID happened because they were supposed to play in 2020 because Fort Valley was on that rotation 2017, 2018, 2019. No, not 2017, 2018, 2019. We played 2018, 2019. Albany was next up 2020, but then COVID happened. So then they put us back on the schedule in 2021, and they played them for the Jake Gaither Classic. But before Jackson State, Albany State was supposed to be in the Orange Blossom Classic in 2020.
Okay. And you know what? Now you said, I vaguely remember seeing something about that. Reading that somewhere a long time ago, and it just kind of slipped my mind. But yeah, I do remember that. But just all in all, like I hope Albany State, make a good hire. I think I want to see them continue that success that they've been having, and that they've continually had. I mean, before Mike White, they had Hampton Smith. He was another, I think 4 or 5 D2 playoffs. Couple 2 or 3 years they were undefeated. So they're just used to winning down there. Like they have a rich winning tradition at Albany State. Unfortunately, we have another school it's blowing my mind. Am I crazy or not? Y'all help me out. When I saw the post for Kentucky State looking for an interim head coach,
yeah, that's wild, man. That's wild.
Basically, they're hiring for a temporary position. Like
Basically.
the head coach job is a temporary
temp job.
But the head coaching job is a seasonal job. That's crazy.
But listen, y'all.
This right here, the thing. Do you think they get ready to try to merge Kentucky State with somebody since they're just looking for an interim?
That's a good point. That's a good
point. Is that what they trying to do? They're gonna just.
So I don't know. Like Kentucky State got a massive what they call I call it a bailout. Okay, but it's really just money owed to HBCUs anyway. So there was this summer, okay, I tweeted about this because I felt like it was just going under the radar. The state legislatures in Kentucky were actually making comments about, we should just pack up all your students and take them to the University of Kentucky. If you guys are wasting money like this, because there was an issue with their president. They were talking about they were mishandling money, and they needed, I can't remember, it was a big number that they needed to stop from closing. So they had to go and beg the state to give them money to stop from closing. Well, the state said, okay, finally. I mean, it took a lot of advocating. They fought really hard. And they came up with this committee and it was some low number. I can't remember the exact number, but I think it was anywhere between like $500 to $1,000 that if they wanted to spend, if a department or anything at Kentucky State cost more than $1,000, they had to go before the committee and ask this committee, could they spend that money? And I was like, wait, that's crazy. So 2 weeks ago, the committee said they were going to allow them to hire 30 open positions at Kentucky State because they were saying that they were down so many positions that they couldn't operate. Now, I don't know if the football coach was in that 30 positions because it didn't list the 30 positions, but then I go on the website, there go the posting 2 days ago for interim head coach.
Interim head coach.
And what's funny was when I looked at the responsibilities and duties, man, I was like, they must have just got this off the website, something really generic. Because one of the duties, they was like going up and down the scaffold. Can you carry 10 pounds up and down the scaffold?
They took that from the middle school poster.
Isn't that normally like what they put on applications though? Like the qualifications, like for that. Like, I can't like can you lift up to 5 pounds? Don't put it in some normal applications though.
Yeah, but when you start talking about, I'm talking about how elementary the posting looks.
They got that from.
It's not collegiate at all.
It's not.
It doesn't give collegiate at all. And
they got that from a middle school posting from somewhere. I saw when you posted it, D2, and I was like, oh my God,
they copy and pasted that from Job Builder, man. Like they copy and pasted that.
Kentucky State is a temp service.
But look,
they
went
right to Indeed.com and said template. That's what it is.
But and y'all know this, I have given Kentucky State praise this whole season that they've been able to hold it together. Because I try to read up on them. I try to keep them in my Google search alerts that if somebody posts something about one of their coaches that I can, it'll come soon as that it comes out. And one of the things I was reading earlier this week was like their defensive back coach. He's an assistant principal. And he was talking about how when he gets there, he has to have somebody to catch him up. And I told him, I said, I'm impressed at how they got those guys up to coach, got those guys up to play every week. They were a game away from being in the SIAC championship game. If they had beaten us, they would have been in the SIAC championship game. And to go through the struggles that they've gone through this year with not getting guys in there too late, they had an AD that people were asking, "Are you going to be on the sidelines?" And he really wouldn't give an answer. And it was just a lot. So I'm not sure the path they're going to take, but the only thing I know is that they do have an opening for an interim head coach. So if you're
Go ahead, D2.
No, I was just finishing out the statement. It pains me because Kentucky State was a program that was on the uptick. Okay, they were on the cusp to me to being what Benedict is now. I saw that same rise in Kentucky State, and just to see them just throw it away like that, it's like, were y'all serious? But it goes back to what President Dr. Faison said last week. It starts in the president's office. You got a president that's focused on something else, and now they don't have one. They're still doing the interviews like they're doing like these public forums because they want this hire for president to be. They're trying to get it right this time. So like they're having all these public forums for who should be the next person to lead them, and it's a lot, and just the fact they were a game away. I'm impressed, and I tell their coaches anytime, hey, I only don't like y'all one time a year when y'all play Tuskegee. Any other day, I 100% support
you. I think Kentucky State is a sleeping giant in football. That's what I think Kentucky State is. I think they are a sleeping giant. It's basically 3 schools in the state. Well, it's more than that. But basically, when you think about Kentucky, what schools do you think about? You think about the University of Kentucky, and you think about the University of Louisville. That's it. And they only get 25. They get 25 new kids, basically 25 scholarships, new kids every year. What are those other kids that's in Louisville, Lexington, Frankfurt, what these other kids, where they going? I know they got some NAIA programs in the state, but I think they're a sleeping giant.
I honestly, just looking back over their history, I kind of look at their history and I kind of look at Central State's history on almost like a similar parallel. Central State has had some real success, like their national runners up. Sometimes it gets lost because they've been so bad recently that people forget. Like they've had the similar success in the playoffs as a Winston-Salem at one point. And when the guy I can't think of his name right now, that was at Kentucky State prior to them not having a coach, well, having an interim coach, they when he got there, he was talking about he wanted to build this program, and you saw him build like the Kentucky State players. We used to, there was a joke: if they complete 5 passes, they lose a game. And in my mind, and I'm still of this opinion a little bit, like you're gonna have to be able to throw the ball to win nationally. That's just my opinion, okay? And the players there believed in their system, no matter how you would joke about it, about, y'all running this old time offense. It didn't care. And when I saw them come to Tuskegee that 2021 year and run that ball through us all day, I said, yeah, they are for real. They did the same thing to Jackson State. They bodied Jackson State. I mean, they just lined up and ran the ball at Jackson State. And to see them be there and to be like on the cusp of like this greatness, it's disappointing. And I just hope that whoever they bring in or whenever they get it right, okay. And I know like the overall health of the institution is the greater cause. So I hope that the institution gets better, so that then they can allocate those resources to the football program and get back to a place where they should be. They've had some years in the past where they've, been really good. When they were, dipping their foot in the SIAC, they were, they had some teams that played really well. So it's there. It's possible. It's possible to win at Kentucky State. It's just if the school and what they have going on can focus on athletics, make it a priority in a sense.
I think that what you're saying about Kentucky State is interesting, because I'm looking at college football results, and they were 7-4 in 2021. 2019 they were 7-3. In 2011 they were 6-4. But a lot of these different records, like, they've had an abundance of losing seasons within the history. They've lost to a lot of SIAC opponents. But I think that the 2021 year, and honestly, that 2019 year is interesting, because I know that with Morehouse, I've been, these past few weeks saying that Morehouse was really good in 2021. And if they beat Albany State, they might be in the SIC championship, against Miles in 2021. And it's like, we say that was an anomaly. Like, do we really count 2021 as a year where it's like, hey, like, they can be good? Because 2019, I mean, you look at 2019, they did beat Jackson State 33-25. They beat Clark Atlanta Lane and Edward Waters and Benedict against Central State. But by all metrics, they lost against the contenders in the West. Tuskegee, Miles, like they lost against those teams. So they were beating teams they were sort of supposed to be. And Albany wasn't on that schedule. Fort Valley wasn't on that schedule. You know what I'm saying? So, like, I feel like to a certain point, I want Kentucky State to succeed, but is the success that we have on record, is it fool's gold? Because the year they made the championship against Fort Valley, they were 4-7 with old buddy the white coach. They were 4-7. You know what I'm saying? But then the years that they won, I'm looking like, did you really play quality opponents outside of a Jackson State team that, of course, was pre-Deion, that wasn't really all that great,
So now that championship year, I feel like that was a joke.
Yeah.
The divisions did not work out in the favor of Tuskegee, because you go back all those years that we were not in there, we would be like 8-1 in the conference, and we would lose one game, and then because Miles and us, this rival, whatever, Ruffin was our thorn in our side. I'm going to say that Kentucky State, the reason why I said it was on the uptick is because if you had seen where they were, as a program, to see him come in and install this different type of offense, to just say, you know what, we're going to run the ball. To go and get like Brett, what was their 1,000-yard rusher? I can't think of his name right now. To see him, and how they used him, and just to see like how competitive, see Kentucky State competitive. There was times that we could play Kentucky State, and I mean, we could play the first quarter and then get ready to go home. But though they might not have had the Albany States on the schedule that year, but that's no fault of their own. That's how the conference was set up at that particular time.
Right.
And if you go back to Albany State when Mike White days, Albany State was the school that was kind of like having this concern about teams like Central State and those joining the SIC, because they were talking about travel costs, which is part of the reason we got divisions anyway, so that some of those schools like Albany State didn't have to make those long hauls, every year. I won't call it fool's gold because of where they were, and they lined up and they beat solid teams in their conference, games that they wouldn't win, games that they wouldn't normally win. So it was a building. It was a building step. I would have loved to see him still have been there this year to see what they would have been this year. I think that would have been interesting because you could see like the elevation of the team, even in the quality of play. When you look at the margin of victory for teams like Tuskegee against them, and I guess you can kind of counter that and say Tuskegee was on the decline too. While they were upticking. But I think it levels out. I won't take that away from for a school that has been historically bad to come there and turn around the amount of time that he did and get an FCS team win, because even when Jackson State was bad, they were still big. They were still FCS. And so I don't care if it's a 0-win FCS team. That's a big accomplishment for a D2 school to go out and and especially a Kentucky State team that the coach prior to him talked about they only had 22 scholarships. So you're talking about 22 scholarships against a school that's giving their full complement of 63 FCS. Yeah, you're doing a job.
I think that with Kentucky State, I definitely see what you're saying. I think that with Kentucky State, they have to look at, because I'm real big on looking at models of success. Like that's really what motivates me. I think that Kentucky State and the incoming administration and the folks that are there in athletics, they have to sort of look at that model of Benedict, because historically, and in the back and forth and the playful banter leading into the SIAC championship, you were saying that, Tuskegee has always beat Benedict when they played. And that was just historically where it's like Benedict came to the conference and there were years where Benedict wasn't successful. But in recent years, they started to be great and they started to get that traction. Then you bring in a dynamic coach like Coach Berry. You have a president like Dr. Artist. And then they go in and they win, have a historic season. I think that, like you said before, like Steven said last week, and like the president of Edward Waters, he being here, he would say, is that it starts from the top. So I just don't see it for Kentucky State until they fix home first. Until they fix the top, that's when the football team is going to get where it needs to be. Because like they're fighting so many fires outside of football that's going to trickle down into their program. And then it's going to cause a lot of stress to these student athletes. Like it's going to cause a depression as far as like the support of the program from the students. Like I just think that they have to fix home first. Now, granted, that interim listing, I ain't with it. Like, because I'm like, man, y'all need to bring somebody in. But I just think that I just don't see them moving forward and being what you all, because I don't fully see it, but I understand what you all are saying. But I don't think that they fully live up to the potential that you all see in them until they change the fight that they're going through to even keep the school open.
Definitely. Yeah, let's give Kentucky State a break. We just never. That's just one of those things we're gonna have to watch and see, and just hope for the best for them.
Well,
and,
I got something for them, B2. What if Ray Lewis comes and coaches them?
Listen, y'all never gonna let me live this Ray Lewis down.
No,
okay. I just want
He better bring his wallet.
Hey, look, Ray
can
can coach at
State,
Kentucky State.
Wait, while we on that subject, why doesn't SAP name ever come up in coaching talk?
That's a good question. I mean, does he want to coach?
Because of those allegations he had.
Okay,
yeah, that's true. But does he want to coach though?
I mean, he's made comments about wanting to coach with Deion. Like when Deion first got there, there's a couple, hints out there that he would like to do that.
But I think certain places, and I'm sorry to cut you off, but I think that certain places, I'm starting to see, especially in a Sunday where Deshaun Watson is back playing football, I think for certain situations, some folks overlook that. You know what I'm saying? And now, granted, HBCUs don't have that luxury because of the PR war we often lose. But I think Warren Sapp could coach in a post Deion Sanders world if he wanted to. He was able to address what has gone on with him.
Yeah, I know. I see little snippets of Sap coaching up D lines and the pros or whatever. I remember seeing something with Sap that he feels that he got the beginning stages of CTE. You know, he was talking.
Yeah.
He was talking about, hey man, I just jump in the car and I be riding and I just forget where the hell I'm going.
Keep on
So
with HBCUs. Okay, no, forget what I said. No, forget what I
yeah,
said.
so yeah, I know that he's been saying that he's dealing with the beginning stages of it. But I do think he'd be a hell of a coach though. Just by saying the little snippets that when he be talking to people about D lines or talking to D lines. Oh yeah, I think he's a hell of a motivator.
Okay, now that you're saying it about like the symbols of CTE, I leave it alone. Yeah, because that can get really tricky, and you don't want your school to be the case that really like flares up, like attacking somebody or something going on. Yeah, if that's really true, I'd say nah. Like he stay where he at.
So one of the things that I talked about coming into the little chat was the transfer portal. I've seen a couple of guys, post. Nobody really that has a lot of stats from the schools so far. But we just see how they go, especially with Albany State. Some of those pieces on that defense. I'm going to be curious. Are they going to stick around at Albany State?
2,000 players, 2,000 plus players in the transfer portal right now.
I wonder
That's all you
if
need to know.
some of that talent is going to come down to D2, because it's a preponderance of Division I players that are in the portal. Like I wonder if they'll try it out. If they end up like a Benedict or somewhere. Like a team that's winning that wants to get that extra step over. Like I really wonder how that could go.
Some of these kids is transferring down for D1. What they have to understand is that D2 football is real, just like D1 football is real. Some kids come down with a silver spoon in their mouth saying, "Oh, I'm just gonna move down to D2 and I'm gonna start at D2." Well, that's not necessarily true. I have seen a couple guys go into the portal. Like I was saying, Morehouse got about 10 guys in the portal right now, and I know probably 8 of them are graduates. Now, they got a receiver that's in the portal who got hurt earlier this year, who only played about 2-3 games. And I also know that the quarterback who lost his job to the freshman, but after the freshman got hurt, he came back out and played. I saw that he's in the portal as well. But, a lot of it has to do with coaching changes, so much uncertainty at Morehouse with the coaching. If Morehouse has the right coach, I think that he can get a couple of those kids back, but it has to be the right situation.
So, Coach Tom, I want to ask you this, and maybe you can share me some insight. Just talking with coaches, just off the record, and one of the things that they said about Benedict was they're going to really see Barry's recruiting ability, his staff's ability, because they were saying that he's going to have to rebuild that offensive line by having all those grad transfers on there this particular season. And I haven't looked through the roster, okay? And I meant to look through the roster because I was going to see, did they get in a crop of like freshman offensive linemen that they're developing to step into those roles, or is it going to be one of those things that they're going to really have to use the portal to be able to get some people in to kind of protect Phoenix next year?
I mean, the portal's never out of the question. They do got some guys on their roster that, definitely for the spring that'll probably pop into those roles from what I've seen. But, I mean, when you look at the portal, as a D2 coach, I mean, it's almost a win for you because, I mean, in the past, that's what mainly D2s did was, look for D1 bounce backs and stuff like that. I think the portal gives it more of it gives you that bullseye that you need to target what you need. Essentially, I think that they're gonna win in the portal simply because, again, when you talk about the HBCU Legacy Bowl, and you talk about these bowl games, they offensive linemen are getting looks in these games. What the other bowl game, the Pigskin Bowl game? I mean, they getting looks in these games, and again, that's what these kids want to, they want to play in these bowl games and stuff to have an opportunity to go to the next level. So again, I mean, I think with Berry being on the coaching staff for one of those bowl games last year, I think that was big for, recruits to see like, dang, okay, well, if I go play for this guy, I have an opportunity to play in this bowl game, which would give me a shot at the league, get me a shot at really, playing in front of some, NFL scouts and stuff like that. So I think, again, that's one of those dynamics that Coach Berry brings to the table, for his team and his program.
So I want to ask this just to bring the sort of the media aspect into it, because I think you brought up a great point, Coach Thomas. So with sort of the narrative of oh, well, going to an HBCU, you're not going to get visibility. With that narrative sort of being sort of debunked, and then having these opportunities to play for these pro scouts and to have your game seen on ESPN, HBCU Go, League Pass, really for us, League Pass and all the other different things. Like, does that make it where we possibly could get better guys? Because you can go to, the NFL from a D2, conference. Like, you can get, spotlight and looks on the right team. Because like the Benedict team has had a lot of folks that got looks. Like, do you think it's going to help out what's going on here?
Well, I mean, I'm gonna say this. I think, again, when we talk about the Deion effect, right? The whole notion of us having the combine, and again, that's the stuff that we're not talking about that Deion helped bring to the HBCU game is, the bowl games and the combines and stuff. These guys actually getting able to get looked at from their own angle instead of dang, a scout maybe pop up at a game and notice a guy out there playing ball. They actually getting some postseason stuff, which is helpful. Which again, that's the more kids get recruited to the league is better for HBCUs. The more HBCU guys get recruited to the league, the better. So again, I think us, as you being the media guy and me being a social media personality of my own, I think it's up to us to kind of show these younger kids that, hey, look, you don't have to go to a bigger program to get this look. You can actually go to an HBCU. Look, this guy's having success right now. I mean, we take a look at the guy that transferred from Florida that went over to Jackson State. You know what I'm saying? That's a story that needs to be blowed up everywhere. That he had a huge game, for the Lions and stuff like that.
Yeah,
So
against
again,
Houston. Yep, this was the fourth. Yep.
yeah. So again, it's they have to see it, man. We live in a see me, show me, society now. Like, don't tell me about what happened with Walter Payton and all of them legends, even though I can see that they Hall of Famers. Like, show me what's going on right now.
That's true.
So I think that's what we have to do as a culture. We have to go back to that and show these kids, like, look, dog, hey, pull up on Benedict and get your opportunity to play in the Legacy Bowl or the Pigskin Bowl at the end of the year in front of, and show them, like, look, scouts are gonna be out there. You just got to show them what you can do.
Right. And what I will say though is that you're right about the combine, because I remember The Rock, and I posted that on Pulse, and they got like 1 million views. The Rock had the XFL combine at Jackson State, and he was having these combines, different things like that. But I know I'm not Deion Sanders' best friend right now, but I ain't gonna give him all of that, because some of that is our conferences making those connects. Because the SIAC, our last commissioner was really good at making connects. It's different things that, like, we were low valued in the media deal. It's other things that could have been done. But like, I think that was less of Deion and more of like its talent spread all around. Like, I think that we have to look at the fact that, for example, with the SIAC, we got some guys here, man. Like, we got some guys that can play at these other institutions and that have played and transferred down, because and at some points maybe it was a discipline issue or a grades issue. At other points, maybe they didn't feel at home where they were and they wanted to come down here. Because I know one guy that was at Fayetteville State, Kari Lane that was at Arizona. He ended up going to the CIAA, but he lived in Georgia. And I remember on the HBCU Game Day article, and I wish Stephen was still here, he said that he didn't want to go to Fort Valley because that was too close to home. And he said a reason why he didn't want to go to Tuskegee. So he ended up going to Fayetteville State and played pretty well until they pulled him for the freshman this last season, going into the playoffs and of course the CIAA championship. So it's been guys even before Deion Sanders that was coming. I think that what we're going to see these next few years, especially next year, is all these guys aren't going to FBS schools. All these guys aren't going to FCS schools. We're going to get some tough guys coming to D2 and specifically, the SIAC. But the only thing is we got to figure out like these guys that want to come to our conference and try to get them, because they're going to end up going to the Valdostas and the Wingets and the University of West Florida, and then they're going to beat us in the playoffs. So we got to get some of these guys so we can try to contend if the playoffs is our goal.
I don't think we're going to lose. I'm going to be honest with you. I think right now, if I'm a recruit, I think going to an HBCU is actually it's a good opportunity. Simply, if you get an opportunity at a bowl game, that could change your life. I look at it like this. We talk about the Deion effect, right? I remember last HBCU players to his pro day because he knew that he would have, scouts there so that those other kids could get looks. So again, man, I think, I think going to a HBCU in general is definitely going to set you up, for some great opportunities. Going to some of these other Division II schools, I don't really know necessarily unless they actually playing on a national scale. Because, or unless it's a D1 who already made a name for itself or something like that. But I really do think, man, HBCUs for definitely D2s is the route to go.
Right. And the funny thing about it is that if you really look at it from a media perspective, the SIAC is in a pretty good situation. And a part of me, of course, me working with League Pass as a streaming partner with Pulse, like I really want to see the SIAC with League Pass. But if you look at our media stuff, we honestly do have a really good media situation, because this was something I talked about in my Bayou Classic video. Like I threw a shot at Flow Sports where I sort of joked about it and sort of like sarcastically made fun of how people are saying HBCUs don't have visibility. But Valdosta State and these GSC schools, they're on Flow Sports that you have to pay for. You don't have that name brand of ESPN. You're not getting a deal where if you want to see other like an FCS playoffs or the other HBCU games in the MEAC and the SWAC, you can see it. You're paying. I've been paying for Flow Sports all year, and I've sort of had to become a fan of like the GSC schools, and I watched Grand Valley versus Ferris State. Like I had to be a fan of that because that value proposition for Flow Sports was so terrible for someone that is an HBCU fan. So if you're in the SIAC, you're getting more exposure than you would to me in like a GCAC or some of these other D2 conferences, because HBCUs are hot right now. And like I said, I'm not going to attribute that to Deion Sanders. If anything, I contribute that to what happened in 2020 with George Floyd. And also when you look at Deion Sanders, but also Raphael Warnock, that was a senator. That's a senator. I hope he wins this time. You have Kamala Harris as vice president. You have a bunch of different alumni that's like, hey, like these folks are dope. Like, what's going on at HBCUs? So you're gonna get more of a spotlight being Jada Byers at Union, being the nation's top rusher, like then you would at some of these other schools. Because Patrick Shegog at Delta State that blew out Fayetteville State. He wasn't even in the final listing for Region 2, and he was putting up 2,000 yards passing for the season. And they blanked Valdosta State, and they had scored 70 points. Jada Byers was mentioned, not Patrick Shegog. You know what I mean? So, like, I feel like it's a plus to be at an HBCU right now, because it's that surplus of attention, plus the media options that are coming to us. Because I think that ESPN wants to expand their library, and then you have black media companies that are really trying to tap in.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about Jada Byers. I mean, he leading the nation. A lot of times when a guy like him, when they get in a situation, a lot of time they'll try to jump in the portal to see we see what's out there and see who's paying attention. I hope a guy like that continues to stay at Virginia Union. Just because of his namesake, I think he's definitely gonna be a big time player. I definitely think he'll be a big time player at the next level. Granted he gets the shot, which I believe he will. I mean, you almost rushed for 2,000 yards. You should get you should get that shot. You should get that chance.
But I
Um,
would say this: it scares me a little bit, Coach Thomas, because with these skill positions, with the quarterback, running back, wide receiver, you're going up against a lot of talent. And the whole entire argument against the Jada Byers, even though they did beat Valdosta, people say that was a down year. And then of course they lost to Wingate, and they were held to such a low rushing total. But you're going up against a lot of other guys, even other HBCU guys with talent at those skill positions. And I feel like that's why we see a lot of defensive guys and O-line guys that get picked up. You know what I mean? Because if you look at it, I don't think we had any offensive guys that got drafted. I know Joshua Williams got off the board first. Then it was James Houston, the fourth, that was Deion Sanders guy out of Jackson State. Then it was like a guy for Southern that was on the O-line that went to the Bears. Then it was someone else. I'm forgetting him. But I don't think any offensive guys even went off the board this past year in the draft. So that's what scares me.
Yeah, I definitely get your concern. One of the things that I see because I kind of stalk the West Florida's social media page, and they are quick when they get a scout coming. I mean, they are posting it that they're scouted, that they have a scout there, and I think that kind of. And they have like a little board, a little graphic where they add every time a scout from a different NFL team come, they add it, and it's out there. In other spaces, we've heard people who have like these fellowships with some of these NFL teams talk about how some of these people how they view HBCU football. Even still right now. I hate that Virginia Union had the game that they had against Wingate. I really wish that he could have shined. Even if they didn't win, I just really wish there. But it goes back to that point that I'm always making. Like, we lose those games in the trenches, and it's just something that just happens. And it has been happening for quite some time. And we have to address that. Like, that's one of our issues that we should be able to run the ball. Virginia Union should have been able to run the ball on Wingate. If you watch what West Florida did to Wingate today, like, it makes you sit back and wonder, like, Wingate got bullied by West Florida, okay?
Yes.
And the GSC is like what people will say, like the SEC of D2, okay, so to speak, because some of the teams they used to have in there historically, like they don't have the North Alabamas in there anymore, but like those schools that have really dominated at one point Division II football, so they call this the hardest region to come out of, because they say, like, you pretty much know who's coming out of the other regions, but it's been pretty much been like a sure in that the GSC is gonna come out of this region too. And I that's something that I was really hoping this year changed. I think of the learning curve. I go back to that. I think if you get Berry in the playoff next year, I think they do better. Because you just had the experience, and we talked about this in our other spaces, that it's a learning curve when you go out and you're playing out of conference, and by Benedict only playing, HBCUs on their schedule, it was just, all right, this is your first shot at it, and this what happens. But if you go back and see what West Florida did to Wingate, it's kind of concerning, okay, that a Wingate can turn around and do that to the CIAA champion, the CIAA runner-up, I guess. They ain't the runner-up, they just whatever.
Well, yeah, they
Virginia
were
Tech.
runner up. They were well. They were by record, but Chowan made the championship against Fayetteville State. So you have a point. I mean, they basically were a runner up.
Right, and how they did Benedict in a sense. It's just one of those things where we have to look at it. You know what I'm saying? I'm still dialed into the D2 playoffs because I'm looking at the style of play. I'm looking at the type of guys they're recruiting. When I saw West Florida, I'll be honest, I just was like, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I got to go back and look at that again because just from the eye test, it's like we have teams that can compete. You know what Dr. Faison said about like that mentality, that culture that goes into it. The Wicked people, you know, they kind of hung me out to dry because I felt like Benedict was a better team. I don't care. I feel
Benedict was like
Benedict is
I
a
will say
better
this,
team.
Benedict was the better team, and as I was watching that game, because I promptly turned it off because I was watching the Grand Valley Ferry State game for sure, but I turned it off because we had of course the SWAC championship, and then I was looking at the Deion Sanders stuff. But I saw a play. It was like the second quarter where like Benedict was rocking Crocker, their quarterback, the quarterback for Wingate. Benedict was rocking them too, but Crocker was making those throws. It was one play where West Florida like literally rocked this man, like his whole body shook, and he was trying to throw the ball. His body shook. It's like his arm went limp, and then they got the interception. Like I feel like what I said when I saw that, I'm like Benedict could have did that easy because Benedict was doing that because they was getting that pressure to him. It was just like Benedict wasn't necessarily scoring on their defense like I had expected. Because Eric Phoenix had a good game when you look at the box score.
Can I say
like,
something about that game?
You're right. Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna just say this, man. There was just a lot of. I was there. I was on the sideline. There was a lot of missed opportunities, man. Like, Benedict left a lot of points on the field.
They did.
I think, granted they run the tables on the conference again. I don't think Benedict could get a 1 seed again, which will probably play in their favor. I think the way when they went undefeated the way they did and they took that week off, I don't feel like that was beneficial to Benedict. I feel like Benedict should have continued to play every week. I think they'll still be playing if they played that next week. I think that 1 seed kind of took them out of their flow. In my opinion.
Yeah. I think Benedict left 20 points on the field. Benedict was running. They was running seam routes, and they was really picking apart Wingate. The interception down in at the end zone that hurt. And then another thing is Benedict could never get their running game going. That's one thing that they never got going. And the coaches the OC from Benedict never adjusted to that. And I'm not trying to tell the man how to do his job or anything, but he should have used his short passing game as an extension of his run game until he can get it going. But I think Benedict is going to be there again. I definitely think that. I also think that. I think that Benedict was the better team that day. They left too many points on the field, and Wingate capitalized on the mistakes that Benedict had.
Let me ask this, because I know this is a hypothetical, and when it comes to sports, I hate hypotheticals. And I want us to be honest, because I know this is our conference, but I want us to be honest. If Benedict had played Virginia Union with Jada Byers in them, do we think that Benedict would have beaten Union if Union beat Wingate? Do you think that we would have won?
It would have been a good game. It would have been a good game. Now the thing is with Union, they are more one dimensional with Jada running the ball. They really struggled passing the ball, but they threw it well enough. Benedict had both going. You know what Benedict run? The offensive Benedict run is top notch. It is really, really, really top notch, especially when they got that run game going. You just never know where they're gonna hit you from. You just never know. But if they had to play Union, it would have been a good game. and I would have took Benedict -6. I would have took Benedict -6 by a touchdown.
Hey, Coach Thomas, like I really want to get your opinion on it for sure because like you've seen these games in person. Like if it was Jada Byers and Union versus Eric Phoenix and the crew from Benedict, like would it have been like a blowout? And you're like, I know as an alumni, as a fan, but like in your coach's opinion, like how do you think that would have gone? Because that's out of conference too.
Well, I'm gonna just say this. I feel like personally Benedict would have matched up better against them just because of, the year. Like Benedict, Jada Byers and all them, they gonna run the ball. And I felt like personally throughout the year, Benedict played the run great. And that's what made them, ultimately have an undefeated season. I mean, we played some very mediocre quarterbacks. I mean, again, I'm not trying to take a shot at no quarterbacks, but our quarterback, we ain't had no 2,000-yard passing in the SIAC.
You're right.
So, I think that we stuffed the run with Jada Byers. I mean, he might rush for 100, but I don't see him taking over the game against us. I truly, again, in my heart, I truly believe if that game would have happened, Benedict probably would have taught them by 13. I even think that Eric Phoenix probably have a better game against them. Again, like I say, I truly believe if Benedict would have continued to play and kept that mojo going and kept that, I don't think that. I think they still playing right now. But I feel like that week off, going 1-0 every week, and then you take a week off, you have a bye week in the middle of the season of a 1-0 every week type of deal, man. I think that kind of hurt them more so than it helped them. Because momentum is something, and it's something that can be stopped,
But and you know what I think though, like I really think that you got a great point because D2 said this about because I was clamoring over I want to see an Albany State versus Bowie matchup in like 2021, and D2 said the style of the team. When you look at Wingate was the perfect opponent for Benedict and Union in any HBCU. And Steven said this on one of his tweets. We are basically run first teams, and you said it, Coach Thomas. We didn't have like a quarterback that really just took off from our conference. Like we didn't have a Patrick Shegog. We didn't have that. We had Emmanuel Wilson that went in. He had Harlan Hill buzz around him. He didn't make the final cut, but they were talking about him. You had of course Jada Byers. You had a lot of guys that really could run, but we didn't have that quarterback that was just airing it out like that. And I feel like that played against us when Wingate was passing the ball, but also like we didn't see outside of maybe an Albany State and a Benedict, we didn't see a run defense that was as dominant as Wingate. Like they were giving up 65 yards a game for the season going into the playoffs. Like we didn't see
that was a huge handicap for BC. And to be honest, like I said, I mean, I think in that game, again, they were able to use their pass to open up their run game. Wingate was, and a lot of times what you would see is like some of the safeties maybe peeking in the backfield, and that, right then and there, now you got a receiver or somebody running past you because you looking at that play action pass really was play action pass. You know what I'm saying? So it's like so it's like I think that's one of them things that really threw Benedict off. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, I've seen a few times like their safety would freeze up on the play action instead of getting into his drop. So again, I think that's one of those things that hurt him.
I'm gonna say this about like the style of play. When Steven said that, what made me agree to him, his point was when he said we don't have anybody that does it good. Because you take a Central State was throwing it 60 times a game. You look at that Bluefield game, I was like, dang, they were gonna throw the ball arm off. They threw it like 50 sometimes against us. Like Central State and Allen, they were throwing the ball.
They were.
But I guess the word would be, was anybody doing that well? Okay?
Right.
And I think the other part to that was neither one of those teams had a strong offensive line for that. They were offensive lines. They were doing the best they could. Okay. I think Benedict had the most complete offensive line out of the conference. And I would argue probably the next one would be, you could argue Albany State, Fort Valley, but Albany State is pretty known for they're known for having a solid offensive line.
They are.
They usually have really big guys up front. But I guess with Benedict, and I feel like Benedict would have beat Virginia Union. Okay, in my heart of hearts, I just believe that Benedict would have been too much. We did see Benedict play a CIAA team. If you want to count that, Elizabeth
But
City,
that wasn't no team for real. They need to play Bowie or Union.
Yeah,
that's Elizabeth City.
Is and it would have been depending on the day about Bowie. Which Bowie showed up that particular day. And which Virginia Union showed up that day. I've said this to you on your podcast when we were talking. On Benedict won all the games they were supposed to win.
Yep.
I felt like when Virginia Union played Wingate, they showed me why they lost to Shawan. It was shown. To me, I think the difference between Benedict and Wingate is because you can look at Benedict if there were moments that they were there. Because I was asking, where's that screenplay? They killed us on that screenplay all day. I was like, hey, coach, call that screen that y'all beat us with. Because y'all beat us with that all day long. Okay. It's a learning curve. And it's something that we've all had to go through. When Tuskegee had their first shot at the playoffs, coming out of the Turkey Day Classic. It's a learning curve. I have no doubt in my mind from what I've seen so far from Coach Beard, if they come back, solidify the offensive line, and they're back in it, I think they go in the playoffs the next time, and I think they can get a W. Because, they have a quarterback. Okay, they have
yes.
That's most of our team's problems. Okay, the start of some of our problems is quarterback play. Then the next thing is, can we protect the quarterback? You start talking about sacks numbers compared to other conferences. You had games where there were teams getting 10 or 11 sacks on the quarterback. So that has to be a point of interest going forward for the conference is our offensive line play. Okay, and I think a lot of teams are probably going to look at that. What Coach Berry and them did. I think they kind of caught people this year, but I'm pretty sure some coaches saying, you know what, we're going to steal that model. We're going to get us some experienced guys in here too to match up with these guys we're trying to develop and see if we can't put a line together. So I feel like that's going to be interesting. I feel like we're going to see a lot of grads at that offensive line position next year for a lot of our teams. Will they gel? That's a whole nother story. That's a topic for another day. But Benedict did, and I don't expect anything less from them next year. I do think they'll be back in it next year. Tuskegee was really young this year. A lot of people don't know that about Tuskegee, about how young we were. We were really young. So I expect us to be right back in it. They're out recruiting, unlike the past couple of years, which there have been issues, but you see them out now, going around the school. So they're looking, and I think the transfer portal also works two ways for D2s, because not only is there's a transfer portal, there are high school kids, because it's changing the landscape of high school recruiting. I think some of those high school kids who would have gone to some of these other schools that these schools are not paying attention to now because everybody's in that portal. I think we're going to get a lot of young talent. If you look back at that, you look at our leading tackle list, it's a lot of freshmen on there because we went and got them out of high school and they probably would have gone to another school. So, it's just one of those things. It depends on your staff. If you got a good staff, a good team at your school, I think they can really make recruiting work, and we're going to see the SIAC excel. start beating these out of conference teams again.
Right. Hey, but I know that we're almost done. Like, I want to say this about the divisions and also a little basketball take. With the divisions, I was against it when Dr. Holloman talked about it during the Fort Valley Benedict game, because that's when the interview happened with James Barrett when he first had mentioned it. I don't know if he had mentioned it before that, but that's when I first heard about it on October the 1st. I was against it because I like how divisions make every game within that division important. You know, like how that Benedict Fort Valley game was important, and that Benedict Albany game was important, but that Albany Fort Valley game was important, and Savannah State ruined our playoff chances. Like, I feel like that heightens the tension. But into it now that I've educated myself more on, you know, the new schedule of the 8 games, I actually really like that. Like, I think there's going to be a lot of fun matchups. I like that, you know, like, we're going to see conference play. And also, and you've heard a lot of FAMU people say this about the SWAC, I like how if we were on that schedule, we would have seen a rematch of Fort Valley versus Benedict. How would it have gone? I don't know, because they have the alumni side of me for Fort Valley. That's part of my team. But the real side of me that saw Benedict really lock folks up. I don't know how that would have gone. You're going against history too. But like that would be interesting to me. You know what I'm saying? So I feel like we're moving in the right direction, and I think we're moving with the times, because the SEC is doing it. And I think starting in 2024, they're going to do that. I think the SWAC has had conversations about it, but I don't know if they're going to do it anytime soon or if they will. It's a lot of conversations switching to that. So I feel like we're on the ball with that. And a real quick basketball take, because I know we're about to end now. I don't know if we'll talk about basketball. Morehouse lost to Miles. I was shocked. I'm like, is Morehouse going to come back to being normal? That shocked me, because it was on HBC League Pass Plus. I watched some of the game, but I was working on some stuff for Pulse, so I was sort of watching it on and off. But I was shocked. I think that we're going to see an interesting SIAC basketball season this year.
Morehouse lost to Spring Hill Thursday.
What? In basketball?
In basketball. Lost by 2.
God.
They played Tuskegee yesterday. Let me see how they did.
Tuskegee won.
Tuskegee beat Morehouse yesterday. So Morehouse will drop 3 or 4 straight.
Man, listen, we're going to come back next year, and Morehouse ain't going to have no sports. It's going to be like Spelman, like Steven said.
Yeah.
No sports.
Morehouse will drop 3 straight.
Man,
they got beat by Miles by 8. They lost to Spring Hill at home on Thursday by 3. And they lost to Tuskegee yesterday by 7.
Hey, that SIAC East is wide open. And Fort Valley's been looking really good. Savannah State, they're the reigning champions on the men's side. Man, it's going to get interesting.
But now I do want to say this about Miles. Now, Miles has been on the uptick in basketball for a while. You know, like, I think they were like 23 and something last year. I think they only lost 1 conference game last year in the regular season. I can't remember.
They got Benedict, old head coach.
Yeah. And he's not bad. Yeah, because I watched the Morehouse Miles game on
League Pass, yeah.
On League Pass. Miles got some talent. They got a 6'7" wing that can go.
But you know,
I'm talking about they throwing alleys. Yeah, I mean they throwing oops and everything.
Morehouse's big problem, and I go back to 2018, like Tyrus Walker. Morehouse's team, and rest in peace to Coach Brewer, because he passed away. He was their coach.
Yeah.
But like, they were not good if Tyrus Walker wasn't really scoring. Now, I think they only lost like twice that year, and Benedict, I think, beat them on the second go round. But Tyrus Walker might have been one of the best SIC basketball players ever, because I think he dropped 47 points on Benedict. He had some game-winning clutch moments. He literally, because I commentated the game where Fort Valley lost 73-72. Like, he literally beat us by himself. Now I have that game, and I might put it on Pulse. I might just put it on Pulse soon.
Okay.
Tyrus Walker game, but like, we were making so many dumb decisions that day, and I was so young in commentary that I didn't see that. Like, if I was commentating now, I would have been like, they're running the same play where y'all are missing the man, where Tyrus is wide open for 3, and y'all are biting on that when no one on the court except Tyrus can shoot a 3-pointer. Like you're biting on folks that's 20% 3-point shooters. Like Morehouse was so heliocentric, and I didn't really get a chance to see them last year because it wasn't streamed. But like I feel like they're like the whole entire heliocentric offense that Morehouse has had is getting exposed because Miles got a team.
Yeah, Miles got a good team. Morehouse, just by seeing them, I think that they still trying to get their role allocations down. I know they got a couple transfers in. They got the kid that transferred in from Coppin. They got another transfer from Texas State. They got some pieces, but I just think they trying to get their role allocation now. Who, right now the leading scorer is one of the twins that transferred over from Clark. So, they gonna have to get their allocations down before they really take off like they did last year.
So let me run down
this is
Miles.
gonna be a different season, man.
Let me run down Miles' record for the last few years. 2018, they went 19-8. They went 21-4 in 19. They went 23-3 in 2021 because that 2020 season didn't happen. And right now they're sitting at 6-1. So it looks like Miles is headed for another one of those great seasons. They've been on the uptick, and I know they've been a thorn in our side at Tuskegee. Ever since they took our basketball, well, they didn't take our basketball coach. He decided to leave, but and go to Miles, and got hired by Miles after he decided to leave Tuskegee. But the basketball season is going to be interesting. I see Savannah State girls have picked off right where they left off. Tuskegee girls have picked up right where they left off. So it's some solid basketball, and of course Benedict is going to be in the conversation when it comes to basketball. I think it kind of hurt my feelings because Benedict is the reason why we didn't win the SIAC tournament this year, and they stopped our football team from winning the championship. So you know what? I'm starting to get a little beef with Benedict.
It's a rivalry brewing.
I'm starting to get a little beef with Benedict now that I think about it. Like y'all, wait now. We're gonna have to fix this some kind of way. But look, man, it's almost 10 o'clock. We almost did 3 hours tonight. I don't know where my mind was because normally
we did. Yeah, we're real close. We keep talking. We're gonna hit 3 because I'm at 301 on YouTube. So yeah.
Yeah, man, and we still got a lot that we didn't talk to, man. So I think now that we're moving more towards basketball, we'll talk because I also want to bring, maybe next week bring the people over the Pigskin Bowl, and a couple of the bowl people, just, come in and just talk about the bowl, promote the bowl, since there are a lot of SIAC players going to the bowl, especially the Pigskin Bowl. I think we got 2 from Tuskegee that's going, 2 or 3 from Tuskegee that's going to be in the Pigskin Bowl this season. So all that is going to be dope. So I think
real quick, I think the good thing about these bowl games is there's not that many HBCUs out there, and now they have to almost compete for some of these kids. You know what I'm saying? So that definitely give the kids an opportunity to, showcase themselves. Because if you don't get selected for this game, you may be able to play in the other game. So definitely a great opportunity.
Absolutely. So I appreciate all y'all for rocking with us. Stick around. We got good things coming. We gonna get in the think tank. We're gonna make it better, make it more interactive. Hey, we might end up being a little SIAC game day, showing up at some of these games. So hey.
We might as well.
We basically already are because we leading the conversation right now with SIAC, man.
So definitely, and let me tell you, the coaches are listening. They hit me up. They don't like to get on and talk because for different reasons. They don't want to get hemmed up or think of quick.
Yeah.
It's a lot that goes into that, but they're listening. They give their feedback and definitely they use it as material now. It's definitely material when we say something, because Wingate definitely made sure they told me that they use what I said for material.
they heard that post radio episode. They heard it, but I want to if Coach Gibbs is listening, if he reached out to you, like I'm gonna keep talking about them going for it on fourth down in the first quarter on the first drive, not kicking the field goal, because we would have been in the playoffs.
Here we go. Here we go.
Because we could have been in the playoffs. We could have got Fayetteville State up out of there, and then we could have got blown up by Delta State. We would have lost that.
Here we go.
we would have got blown out by Delta State. Let's be real, but at the very least, give us a chance to get blown out. Come on.
And yeah, I'm surprised I didn't get more kickback from Fort Valley people when I was talking about we need to, after this year, go back to A&M. Well, bring A&M into the Red Tail Classic.
Well, to be honest, I mean that makes sense. You know, I mean, like I feel like first I would say for I feel like a lot of these folks ain't on Twitter no more, and also you're not gonna get like unless you diss Fort Valley, you're not gonna get no blowback. You didn't diss Fort Valley. You just said that, hey, you want a traditional rival, but that makes sense because like that would just be dope to see for all the storylines, Tuskegee being a power, and then you got Connor and Manning trying to get trying to right the ship again, and then both of you all are in Alabama. Like that makes sense. You know what I'm saying? And I would love to see who Fort Valley can play. Like for that first game, that would be interesting. Because I honestly wonder sometimes how scheduling goes, because like I really want to see games that really interest like viewers, like TV viewers and fans, because like it seems like these other conferences do that. Like they put like their first game is like one of their best games. You know what I'm saying? So like Tuskegee Fort Valley has been that because those are big names and blue bloods. But I think Tuskegee A&M goes crazy. I like that better.
I would love to see the CIAA and the SIAC open up first week. That first weekend, that Labor Day weekend. Hey, let's do it.
Pioneer Classic. No, don't do the bowl. Pioneer Classic.
Yeah, let's do it.
Be a union. Pioneer Classic.
And then you have it every year, but the champions from each league open it up every year.
Man, hey, we need to talk to somebody. Hey, like if the coaches are listening, let's talk to HBCU League Pass Plus. All right.
Hey, I'm telling you. And I'm telling you, and have the champions each. So next year, Fayetteville and Benedict open up, and let them open it up on Labor Day weekend, and you can play that Sunday. You can play it before the Red Tail, or you can play it that Saturday, or whatever.
Because that makes more sense in the bowl game. I mean, cut off my bad, but like that makes more sense than the bowl, because we're saying that we want to make the playoffs, and the problem was that the champion normally went to the playoffs. Yeah. We play the first game of the season. I know people will say, well, the team's ain't in schedule, but I mean, or aren't full strength or whatever, and they're not in stride. But I mean, that'd be a good way to test the barometer of the SIAC and CIAA, and then you see more like tougher competition that first game.
And then I would love to see Union play Fort Valley. I would love to see Bowie play Albany. I would love that.
I'm a little bit scared of Union, man. I'm a little bit scared. After happened with Savannah State, I'm scared. I don't want to see
but you know what I mean? That first weekend, let's have a CIAA SIAC challenge. Each league got 13 teams.
Right. Almost like the roundup that they do in basketball.
The same thing. And you can do home and home. You go home one year, you go home the next year.
Man, someone get Dr. Hobbin on the space, man. We got an idea for him.
you know what I mean?
Run
Why
up
not?
versus run up, champion versus champion.
Yeah, and you go at it like that, and then the rest of the conference, you just pick your partner who to play. Like for instance, Morehouse and Smith might be a crazy game. Smith and Benedict might be a crazy game. They so close.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
But the only drawback of that is that SIAC, I'm not SIAC, but that CIAA South is pretty weak. The North is good. The South pretty
Yeah.
weak, so we might
What?
run through them. To be real,
Hey,
Morehouse
but
might run through Elizabeth City or Johnson C. Smith. Let's be real.
you also got to be shit. But hell, we only won one game this year. Shit, they
But
might
I'm just
run
saying,
through
but
us.
but 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 think about this. Our version of winning one game might be going undefeated in Saturday South. You never know.
Yeah, and that's true. But it's only one way to find out.
You right. You right.
It's only one way to find out.
That's true.
There's only one. You start having games. You could play two games that first Thursday night. That Thursday you can then you can have 4 to 5 games that Saturday, and 3 to 4 games that Sunday. That Sunday or Labor Day weekend,
Man,
and have a good time.
let me just because I know that he's about to close it out, but that
Yeah,
is an example of what I call weaponizing your culture and weaponizing your media rights. Because that sounds like the NBA opening weekend to me, where it's like those matchups, you build the story around them, you get the different media properties, even like the HBCU Go or League Pass involved in it. That's what I call weaponizing your media rights, weaponizing your sports rights. That's
yeah.
money fans right there.
That's what it is. Especially on the Labor Day, who wouldn't travel? You don't got to go to work, man. This is Saturday game. Why not go? If Morehouse, we went to New York the third week of the season, and we packed that side out. I don't understand. We went to go play Howard. We flew to New York to go play Howard, and we packed that side out. Packed that side out. But people won't drive an hour, 45 minutes, 2 hours to Birmingham for the Morehouse Tuskegee Classic. Some ain't right there.
And you know something, I guess getting those matchups that people want to see is interesting. And then what Randall said about building those stories around those around those matchups, and that's really important. I was really shocked at the attendance at that Morehouse Howard game, and I just was like, dang. If Morehouse would have been even competitive in that game, you just imagine what that game would be the next. What it's going to be the next year. I think it's that's going to continue to be big. I hope Howard and
Yeah,
Morehouse can work something out, much like I hope that Tuskegee and Hampton can some way because
yeah.
just our history. But I ain't gonna get lost in that. I do want to say I see my guy Chris down there. I really wanted him to come up and talk. I see
Okay.
he's been actively trying to hit the coaches. I sent him a request. He probably can't talk tonight, but I've been seeing he's been trying to get coaches' attention and out there. So I see you, and when the coaches ask me and we talking, I be like, hey, you need to answer that guy and
Yeah.
see what, because
You,
he might have a dime in the rough for you. Like,
yeah.
hey, that's
you,
that's one of our own.
you
That's
know,
one of
we
our
would.
HBCU own.
Yeah, Morehouse went and played Howard in New York. It was 0-0 at halftime. Howard got on the board first, kicked the field goal third quarter, and then Morehouse fumbled the ball on back-to-back possessions after score. So it went from 0-3 to nothing, about 7 minutes left in the third, to 17-0 with 6.5 minutes left in the third. That's how fast the fumbles and the touchdown came right after that. So so
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
go ahead, Ram.
Well, all I was gonna say is on the media front, the game was on CNBC. Like, wow. I shout out to
Yeah.
NBC for getting it, but why was it on CNBC? Like, and then they ironically played like Deion Sanders episode of like I think it was like Deion Sanders episode of Undercover Boss. Like, why was it on NBC? It's like
So
CNBC. That was weird.
so the reason why it wasn't on NBC was they played it too.
Yeah, I know, but it was just that was just an odd place to have it. I'm like,
Yeah.
yo, that was
Well,
an odd place.
somehow, NBC, one thing that we have to understand is, people love ESPN. ESPN does need. If you want to make some noise with the media, we need to keep doing with the League Plus and HBCU Go. We need to get on with NBC with this Peacock. We can make a lot of money. The schools make a lot of money with that Peacock. It's $5 a month. You know what I mean? Peacock's supposed to be getting ready to start to show NBA games next season.
Oh, wait, for it? You sure?
Yeah, yeah. So
Because the only thing is that, like, now, granted, I've been like on the NBA side, I've been hearing, of course, me being tied in with the media thing and Neil Stardy's podcast, that like Amazon and Apple are hopping in the fray. I would love to see NBC get more stuff. Period. Like,
yeah,
I want to see them get NBA again. I was a big advocate for seeing NBC hop in the fray and CBS because I
hmm
just don't see why we have all of our rights primarily at ESPN, except for ESPN Plus. Then we see that they didn't show the live version of the Tuskegee Benedict game.
yep,
Then like when they show some of these games, the streams are terrible. So I'm like, man, like why don't we see what CBS will look like in a game of the week format? Like why can't we
exactly.
see Morehouse Tuskegee on like maybe big NBC or on a like why not try it? Because I think there's a building audience for it. Plus, it's going to be a buzz around it because it's HBCUs, just Tuskegee and Morehouse, for example. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Or maybe try Fort Valley, Albany, and just try. You know what I mean?
you,
It's worth the try. I mean, if it gets 100,000, that ain't too bad. I mean, you know,
yeah,
like I look at ratings differently. You know what I mean?
yeah.
But I,
If
I
you
just
get
want to see the media rights weaponized more.
Yeah, but I look at Will's. I don't know how many of y'all watched the Thursday night game on Prime
I did.
on the NFL game on Prime. Prime, if Amazon, if Jeff Bezos figure out how to get these rights for the NFL at all times, or how to get these rights for the NBA. Did y'all see the LeBron James the Sharpe episode with
Oh
them
my,
watching
that
the
was so
football
great.
game?
Yo, that was great.
If he figure out how he can do this with the NBA and have that once a week, or have those guys up there once a week just basically shooting the shit and talking and going over sports, that's what we need as HBCUs.
I'll say this: we got to go. I was thinking Shannon Sharpe could do it, but not no more.
No, no. Hey, look. Uh-oh, Shay Sharpe crazy, man.
Clearly,
I think Shay Sharpe was drinking when he tweeted what he was. He always talk about this Hennessy, or whatever he called it. I think Shay Sharpe was drinking, cause
they wasn't drinking. That man was smoking. It's
but
crazy. He smokes crack.
cause what he wrote is totally different than what he always said. Cause he usually always be like, I love my time at Savannah. If I wasn't at Savannah, I wouldn't be here now. If I couldn't go to Savannah. But then he come out with like, well, if I was a prop, and that's the only reason I was at Savannah. All right, Shay. Yeah, you doing something you got no business doing over there. Now, everybody, you do whatever you need to do, Shay. But you should have kept that one to yourself. And better hope that Stephen A. don't see it, because Stephen A. gonna cook him tomorrow if he see
No, he's not. Stephen ain't saying a word about Shannon Sharpe.
it.
That, like, because you got to realize that these folks they're tied in. It's political. So
Yeah.
Stephen A. wouldn't say nothing about Deion Sanders. He wouldn't say anything about Shannon Sharpe. This political. He might think a certain way. If you just like ask him black man to black man how you feel about that, he might be like, man, I wouldn't feel in that comment. But he ain't gonna say
Yeah.
no ESPN because that's a Fox Sports guy, and
Yeah.
then that's a relationship, and you don't want to be seen as you going at Shannon Sharpe. Now it's a back and forth. You don't want that, so you're not gonna hear nothing like that.
Yeah, but yeah, I don't know what Shay Sharpe was talking about right there. And Shay Sharpe was tripping hard.
Well, man, I appreciate y'all. Another good show. We're going to keep trying this till we get it right. Keep supporting your HBCU. Keep supporting SIAC football. And we're going to keep trying to bring attention and highlight stories, through the off season, whatever, talk a little basketball. So y'all, keep tuned in. Follow everybody up here. Any closing remarks y'all want to have?
Well, for me, first and foremost, like I honestly think this is doing great. Like a lot of people have been checking this out. I've been hearing some great things, and a lot of like the big Twitter Spaces personalities pop in from time to time. So I love it. But of course, you can follow HBCU Pulse on social media at HBCU Pulse, Instagram, YouTube, the HBCU Pulse on Twitter, and TikTok. Also, make sure to watch HBC Lead Pass Plus Channel 201. That's the HBCU Pulse channel. We have an Alpha Founders Day marathon all week of original content. And it's a big announcement coming up. My birthday's on Christmas Day. got a big announcement coming up that's like a life goal. And I know that Coach Thomas already knows. I think I told D2, but it's coming out. We doing some big things starting January. It's gonna be big, and I'm putting the SIAC on this for sure. So yeah, it's gonna be real big.
Hey man, it was good talking with you guys tonight. Everybody that's locked in, make sure y'all tune in next week. CT, man, next time we got to get you on, man. I done sent you a couple mics. We got to get you on next time. D2, you have a good one.
Y'all too, man. You got something you want to close out, Damien?
Hey, man, I'm just going to tell y'all, brothers, man, have a good week. I look forward to talking to y'all every Sunday. You know, just to get some of this sports off my chest. You know, usually it's more about the PWIs, but hey, I love to talk about our HBCU. So y'all brothers have a good week, and I look forward.
Like for real,
Yeah.
Wow.
Like
No. This is I'm playing about the Cam Newton thing, but word on the street is that that is something that's in the works, man. Possibly may get done. That guy from FAMU may be taking the assistant head coach job and quarterback coach. So that's just
And
something
let
to
me
be
tell
looking out for.
hey, if Willie Simmons leaves Fam to go with Deion, do you know what that fan base gonna go crazy?
They going up to they're going to Colorado to riot like January 6th.
Hey man, money talk, man. Money talk.
You know that's
That's
what
staff.
I mean. Man, that's crazy, man. That's a big wow.
Man, that staff he's finna put together at Colorado is finna be amazing, man.
Deion Sanders, if he does that to FAMU, Deion Sanders will have to deactivate his social media. Even his son have to deactivate his social media.
Man,
Like,
hey,
it'd be bad.
Hey, listen. Don't be surprised when you're talking about this the whole time next Sunday.
Okay.
All right, fellas, man. Y'all boys have a good week.
I appreciate it, man.
Yeah.
Y'all have.
Y'all have a good one.
Amen.
All righty, man. So that is it for us with the SIC talk. It was very interesting this time around. We were on for looks like 3 hours and 21 minutes and 20 seconds. So really quickly, I want to give my thoughts on Shannon Sharpe and what he said on today in, light of Deion Sanders leaving and going to Colorado from Jackson State. Of course, Deion Sanders, of course, he went to Florida State and he had a very storied career and he did a lot of great things for HBCUs, but how a lot of HBCU alumni feel is, we feel bamboozled. We feel as if he made so many promises for HBCUs and he didn't have the time to fully live up to it. And he sort of left us high and dry. The news came out and it blindsided us. And it just seems as if he made the move to the chagrin of his family, to the chagrin of a Jackson State fan base and a community that really needed someone like Deion Sanders there. And that's what we're more upset at. I mean, we're not necessarily upset at the acceptance of the position itself. We're just shocked and hurt at someone that purported to be for us that left. But we have someone that's for us in Shannon Sharpe that essentially said, listen, for me, I went to an HBCU because my grades were bad. I didn't go because I necessarily wanted to go. I could have gone to non-HBCUs. I was going to NFL anyway, but my grades were bad, so I went to an HBCU. And for someone that we herald as a hero in HBCU football, for someone that we all look at in HBCU football as one of our success stories and what we tell students and what we tell our athletes, you can be like Shannon Sharpe coming from Savannah State or Fort Valley or Tuskegee or a D1 institution. To have that along with Deion Sanders leaving and how we perceived that we were bamboozled, it didn't feel good. And I'm recording this on a Sunday, and I think that the comments you're going to see from Shannon Sharpe on Undisputed are going to be within the vein of basically saying that we're all crazy for being mad at him leaving when you have this notion that you only went to an HBCU because you didn't have an opportunity at a white school. When Morehouse has high admission standards, Tuskegee has high admission standards, there are schools in our conference that have high admission standards and that are standard for academic excellence at HBCUs. It irks me because I feel as if we don't do enough to support the image of our HBCUs. And as we become alumni, I believe that we don't speak highly enough about our HBCUs and why they matter. And not only in the sense of, oh, we're succeeding without resources, we're succeeding in general. And that's the part that irks me. I see from a lot of these media folks that went to HBCUs that have made it to the highest levels. They got the adulation, they got the money, they got the success, they have the celebrity. They are disconnected from the HBCU community as a whole. And Shannon Sharpe is a perfect example. He had a situation where he was talking about how bad the facilities were at these HBCUs, and you had head coach Willie Simmons. This was back 2021. I think when like around the time it was conversation about Deion Sanders and some other things going on, and him and Coach Simmons had a little bit of a Twitter back and forth. It wasn't too contentious, but you're talking to someone that played in a Power 5 conference that's seen both sides of the coin, from a Power 5 conference to coaching at FAMU and other institutions. And you're saying that, hey, well, these facilities are bad. Why are we so quick to rush to say HBCUs have bad facilities? This is the reason why folks don't go. I think that the reason why we're not getting these students is because they feel as if, these student athletes feel as if they have a better chance of making it to the league by going to a PWI. And now we can't even say Shannon Sharpe is our guy because he said he would have went to a non-HBCU if his grades were better. As someone that is an SIAC graduate and that worked in athletics when I was a student being a commentator, and I just laud Shannon Sharpe for his success that he had both in his media career post-football and also what he did for the Broncos and the Ravens, him being such a dynamic tight end. And then how sometimes he'll talk about his college career and he'll mention Morehouse. He'll mention Fort Valley. He's mentioned Fort Valley a couple times. I'm like, we have a guy that's in there. And I wondered, like, man, maybe we should bring him in for a simulcast, like a Manning cast of sorts, or if Fox Sports will let him, or I want to see him do more with the conference. I want to see Undisputed on Savannah State's campus. Dude, if this is how you're being an HBCU advocate as one of our celebrity alumni, I'm looking at you real sideways. And I'm going to be looking at you real sideways come Monday when I hear your comments. Because I just think that if you're saying that unprompted about your time at an HBCU, I think that your comments about how we feel about Deion Sanders leaving Jackson State is going to be a whole lot different. And I don't think we're going to be big fans of it. I think that we're anointing celebrities to be our voices when they really shouldn't be, especially if they're not speaking within the ideology of my HBCU experience changed my life. I'm glad I went to my HBCU. Like, you can make it from an HBCU. I'm not saying you have to parrot our talking points, but man, can we speak some truth to power and not act like our institutions are less than? Because they're not. Do we have setbacks? We do. Have we had resources held back from us? We have. But we have to graduate from our institutions and speak about the greatness that comes from it. And the products of our institutions that are great within themselves, that achieve success at the highest heights. Y'all can't work against us. And what HBCU stakeholders are saying ain't always wrong. We're not wrong about Deion Sanders. There's different viewpoints, and we accept those viewpoints, but we ain't always wrong. And y'all not going to gaslight us to make it seem like we are. Because all we want is to see our conferences succeed. And what we're seeing is a huge flight of folks that are leaving our conferences and that are seeing our conferences as stepping stones, both players and coaches. It's time for a narrative shift, guys. And how I look at it, HBCUs are not going to get to the point where we all want them to be if we don't support our HBCUs and not look at them as the slums or the ghetto or charity, and Morehouse institutions that can be competitive, that have been held off of resources. We're owed millions and billions of dollars, a lot of our institutions, and we have a lot of things against us, but we have an amazing culture that accepts our people, that graduates our people, that makes an educated populace, and that puts folks in the NFL like Shannon Sharpe. You can say you would have made it to the NFL either way, and you probably would have, but you made it from Savannah State, and you went from Savannah State to the NFL, to the Hall of Fame, to undisputed. So I expect a little bit more from Shannon Sharpe, and it hurt me. As an HBCU alum and someone that's an HBCU lifer that does this, man, it hurt me. And I really wish Shannon Sharpe would apologize or at the very least clarify his statements a little bit more, but he ain't going to do it because a lot of these folks that in the media, they are black men that feel like they're never wrong. And they're black men that feel like I don't need to apologize because he don't care that he offended us. He don't care that made us look crazy in the midst of Deion Sanders already leaving, going to Colorado. That's a 1-11 school after leaving like a Jackson State program that went 11-0 and 12-0 and won the championship 2 straight times. They don't care about that. All they care about is their next paycheck and what life is for them. And then they'll come back to HBCUs and show support when it's convenient for them. We can't do that anymore, guys. So that's just my take on what happened with Shannon Sharpe. I'm just very disappointed in him. And I'm going to check out what he says on Undisputed, but I'm already knowing I'm not going to really be the biggest fan of it. But outside of that, you all, that is it. I appreciate everybody for coming on. A lot of great comments about what we talked about. I meant what I said about the Albany State thing. Coach Gabe Gardena was an amazing coach. If you're saying that he wasn't, I'm looking at you a little bit sideways, and I'm thinking that you might not be giving him that praise because he's white, and I get it. But come on, man. Beat Valdosta. Beat University of West Georgia. Beat Fort Valley. That's my alma mater. Beat us. I think, 4 of his 5 years, we got him this year with Coach Gibbs. You know what I mean? So, y'all got to get real with it, man. Like he was a great coach, and he did amazing things for that program. And I think he's going to be great at Charleston Southern. But, I do hope that a black coach does get a mention at Albany State, but you got to bring in someone that's going to continue the winning traditions of such a rich traditional program that is Albany State. So, we'll see what happens. But nevertheless, thank you so much, you all, for tuning in. Make sure to follow HBCU Pulse on Instagram and YouTube at HBCU Pulse, Twitter and TikTok, the HBCU Pulse. And make sure to follow us on HBCU League Pass Plus, channel 201. We have a lot of great content coming. Big announcement coming up. It's going to be game-changing on my birthday, December 25th. That's Christmas Day. So y'all going to see some real big stuff coming up. A lot of great content going into January. And yeah, man, so make sure to tap in. I appreciate you all so much. And yeah, I'll talk to you later and see you on the other side.
Views are more than a trend. Yeah. We're forever a part of the culture. HBCU Pulse always has you on lock. From the shade room to your favorite news feed, and now on your TV and radio. We are the #1 outlet for HBCU culture. Follow HBCU Pulse on social media and visit hbcupulse.com to stay up to date on what's going on in the HBCU community. Like what you hear?
Yeah.
Subscribe to HBCU Pulse Radio on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Also, head to hbcupulse.com to stay up to date on what's going on in the HBCU community. Thank you for listening to HBCU Pulse